Hello, and welcome back to Zenin Fanfics. Today we're starting an exciting new series. What if Deku had Kitsune Quirk? If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe for more content. The story we're featuring is written by FoxLover25 on archive of ourown.org. You can find all the relevant links in the description, so be sure to check out the author's profile and say hello. Now, let's dive into the story. Once upon a time, there were beings that hid in plain sight. Beings that were too powerful for the world. These beings were all over the world, unknown to humans all around. The powers they possessed were far too great that even one of them could conquer the world. The ruler of these beings had decided that they were going to another dimension so they could be separate from the humans. Many wanted to stay. Very few did. In order to stay, they would have to do something that convinced the ruler that they deserved to stay. Those who stayed remained hidden under the disguise of humans. After they left, strange things started to happen to humanity. They started getting supernatural abilities. The first case was a newborn baby in Japan. The baby had emitted light from his body. Since then, people around the world have been developing these kinds of powers. Society named them quirks. As these powers came, a new profession came as well. Heroes. Humans who use their quirk for crime and evil are marked as villains, while the ones who stopped them were called heroes. Over 200 years passed since the start of quirks, and humanity is still oblivious as to why quirks appeared. The only ones who know the mystery behind the quirks are the beings hidden in plain sight. Among the first quirks were two, whose powers were among the most powerful. The names of these quirks were All for One and One for All. One had the ability to take any quirk from any person and use it for themselves. The other had the ability to stockpile power and be passed on to others as a sacred torch. The owners of these quirks were sworn enemies. One was for evil, one was for good, and neither of them would back down until the other would be defeated. Today, the eighth holder of One for All was seriously injured from a ferocious battle with the holder of All for One. The battle was glorious. However, the result left both holders seriously injured. Unknowing to them was that the holder of All for One was not dead, but seriously injured. The holder of One for All, All Might, was in a hospital with an enormous hole in his abdomen. His stomach completely destroyed, and his respiratory system was damaged to the point where the best healer couldn't fix it. All might be currently walking through the hallway of the hospital, while more struggling to walk and more using the wall to hold himself up. There were 4 people behind him urging him to stop pushing himself. The people among him were Grantorino, Recovery Girl, Principal Nizu, and the one currently yelling at him was Sir Naitai. This is reckless, All Might. It is time for you to step down. Naitai urged the injured hero. But everyone is looking to me for my help. There are frightened citizens, and I have to go to them. All Might argued. He would not back down. Keep doing hero work in that body, and the entire world is going to suffer, he calmly stated. His anger was building up. Why couldn't All Might just see he's just trying to help him? If you wish for enduring peace, then retire while you're a legend, he pressed further. If you're looking for a successor, why not search at UA? Nizu spoke up. You put in your dues and more, All Might. Naitai wasn't going to give up. Imagine what your future could be like. A comfortable life. Just find a cheerful and strong replacement, and entrust your role in society to them. It's time. He did not think anyone could be what All Might was, but now with this new injury, he might be open to anything. And who will be the symbol until I find someone like that? Even if All for One is beaten, another villain will replace him. All Might tried to walk, but it was proving to be a huge challenge for the most powerful man in the world to accomplish. All Might lost his footing and almost fell. Naitai caught him just in time. I know the importance of the symbol. I revere its function, but please, All Might, you can't even smile right now. Naitai was trying to do everything to stop his best friend from going down this path. He saw something that cannot be true. Naitai was right. He could not get a smile now, with all the pain coursing through him. He'll say it again. You must retire. Naitai then had an idea that was sure to make him stop. If you continue your hero activities, I won't support you. I won't. I can't. Naitai gave him an ultimatum. All Might got up on his own and started to walk again while leaning against the wall. All Might gasped as he realized something. He looked back to his sidekick. You saw it, didn't you? I told you not to use your foresight on me. He had saw All Might's future. That is why he is so persistent about this. If you step away now, another one will appear. Things may be rough for a little while, but we'll survive. We'll find a way through it together. Naitai pressed further, tried a way in the good through the bad. And while we're figuring this all out, how many people will have to fear for their lives? All Might asked. He proceeded to limp across the wall. Naitai couldn't keep calm anymore. Listen to us. Besides, your foresight is never wrong. So why try to fight it? All Might did not see a point in trying to fight with him. If he saw it, then it would come true no matter what you do. There just hasn't been any precedent for it. But I think I can change the future. Naitai exclaimed. All Might did not stop. At this rate, events will play out as I've seen. That can't happen. Don't you see? I'm here because I want to do something to help you. He didn't know why he would concede. Please, All Might. I'm sorry, but for the sake of this world, I have to be able to say that I am still here. All Might's hero soul would not back down. Please stop. If you'll continue like this, you'll leave fate in the hands of someone so powerful, they'll make a choice that will determine who will live and who will die. That includes you. If he didn't see what he saw, he would have said something different. This got All Might to halt, and everyone behind him were now curious about what Naitai saw. All Might turned his head. What do you mean? Is this a villain? There's no other villain like All for One, and I beat him. And I'll beat this one too, All Might declared. That's the thing. I don't know. He gritted his teeth. This thing, when I saw it, made my foresight stop and spiral out of control. I could not see any farther. It was like whatever I looked at saw what I was trying to do and stopped it. He spoke low, sounding disturbed. That disturbed everyone around him. Naitai's foresight never stopped unless he wanted it to. And as far as anyone knew, no one could stop his foresight. Eraserhead was the only one they knew that could stop quirks. But he would have completely stopped his quirk. But it didn't stop. It completely went haywire. The things I saw were like multiple events that could happen, and most of them lead to your death. The last part, he whispered. This has never happened before. So something this powerful that can even mess with time cannot hold your life in its hands. So please, All Might, I'm asking you to stop. Whatever this thing is, I don't think even you can stop it. If a new holder goes against it, then maybe we have a shot to stop whatever it is. Naitai hoped that swayed his thoughts, even a little. All Might looked down. You don't even know if this thing you're talking about is evil. So why are you acting like it's an enemy? If it's not a villain, and it's this powerful, then we should find a way for them to join us. And become a hero instead. If someone this powerful has a chance to become good, then I have to be there to inspire them. All Might stated again to move. So for the sake of this person and the rest of civilization, I will not stop. I will not back down. I will keep a smile on my face for everyone, including villains, to show that I am not scarred. I will continue to be here for them all, even if it kills me. He finally reached the elevator and pressed the button to go down. He turned his head as he waited for the elevator. Barley aside, I'm sorry, my friend, but I will not step down as long as there are people that need my help. If you wish to dissolve our partnership, then I will not stop you. He calmly stated. A ding went off, and the doors to the elevator swung open. He turned to go inside. As the doors were about to close, he stopped them with his hand. He refused to look up at the group. I just wish you can understand. And someday, I hope you will see what I see. All Might removed his hand from the door and finally let it close. The last thing all of them saw was his deep blue eye in the crack of the door. The entire group was in a state of grief. They all knew that even with the fear of the devil in him, that All Might would never cower. What they didn't know was that he would risk one of his closest friends for it all. Granarino, Recovery Girl, and Nizu all looked towards Naitai. His head was bowed, and he wasn't saying a word. The silence was killing them all. Gran Torino stepped forward and was about to comfort him when Naitai screamed in frustration. He turned to the wall and punched it with all his power. It went all the way through. Gran Torino stepped back in shock. The other two also stepped back. Naitai pulled his hand out, and mixed with the white from the crumbs from the wall was BLD. His hand was cut up in 3 different places. There must have been some sort of material behind the wall. He held his hand at his side, gripping his fist. He didn't care that he was injured. He was in a hospital, so he would be fine. No one spoke, too afraid to set him off. A few minutes passed in absolute silence. The only thing moving was the BLD dripping onto the floor from his cut-up hand. Recovery Girl finally had enough. Nightai, what did you see that was so powerful? They all wanted to ask that question of what had terrified him so much. They waited for an answer. After a few minutes of not talking again, it seemed as though he wasn't going to tell. They all turned to leave. Night-Eye muttered something. They turned back to him. Come again? Nizu asked. He spoke a little louder now. A green fox. 22XX, October 14th. Izuku is 13 Alder Middle School, 2:30 p.m. school, was just a few minutes from getting out. The entire classroom was quiet except from the occasional whispering and snickering from other students who should be focusing on their work instead of doing whatever the hell they were talking about. The class had been assigned to read the next chapter of the book they were reading and then write a 2-page paper on it by the end of the week. Izuku was almost done with the chapter. Izuku was going to get started with the paper as soon as he got home so he could have the rest of the week free. As he was about to finish, he felt something lightly hit his head. It startled him out of his focused reading, and he looked down. It was a crumpled-up piece of paper. Izuku looked to his back, right in which the direction it was thrown. He saw a few students smirking as they turned their head, as to seem like they were not doing anything. Izuku frowned at that. That had been the 7th one of the day. He looked ahead of him to see if the teacher would do anything about it. He looked like he was bored out of his mind, with his head propped up with his arm on the podium in front of the class. His eyes were half closed as to tell anyone that approached that he was bored and to give him any form of entertainment. Izuku sighed at the sight. Of course he wouldn't do anything. If he would not do anything about the first few hundred times that he did see it, why would he do something now? The kids in his class always picked, teased, mocked him, and bullied him. All because of one thing. He was quirkless. The world population that has quirks is 80%. And the other 20% were quirkless. In society nowadays, quirks define who you are. They define who will be successful and who will go where in life. They define how people treat other people, and they also decide if you're going to live past your teen years. Over 90% of the quirkless population die before they could even hit their 20s. Some from abuse, some from hate crimes, and most is suicide. Quirks define who you are. So if you're quirkless, you're basically nothing. The whole world does not see you as anything other than a literal waste of life. A lot of quirkless citizens think that if you can't go anywhere in life, then why go on? A few years ago, when Izuku had turned 10, he had joined a chat page where people who are quirkless would talk to others who are quirkless. The first few days of chatting were nice, and Izuku had felt a little bit better talking to others who were like him. But after that, things went downhill. He heard about some of the living situations of the quirkless before online, but to hear people talk about them who have experienced them was much worse. One of the first who he had met on the chat was a game named Barry. He was about a year older than Izuku was. He was so nice and funny. Izuku didn't have a real friend since his former best friend, Katsuki Bakugu, now his #1 bully. Barry had lived with his dad. He told Izuku about how his mom died a few years ago. His dad was not a good one. Every time he saw Barry, he would act like he was a criminal and treat him like one. He even hit him a few times. Izuku had told him to call the police. Barry said he tried to call the police once, but they didn't do anything because he was quirkless. After that, he didn't rely on the police at all. Izuku wanted to do something, but Barry just told him that nothing terribly bad will ever happen. He didn't know that he was wrong. One day, when Izuku was in the chat, he was trying to find Barry, but he didn't turn up. Izuku waited for a while talking to others, but still no Barry. Izuku just figured that he either forgot or had a rough day and didn't feel like logging on. The next day was the same result. Maybe he just broke his computer, Izuku thought. The next few days were the same. He was getting worried. After a week of silence from Barry, an explanation finally made its way to the Green Eat. Turns out the night Izuku and Barry last spoke was his last night alive. He was beaten to death by his father. Quirkless 11-year-old killed by his father. That's what news has stated. He was killed by the person that was supposed to love him and protect him no matter what. The article was 2 paragraphs. The zoo had more than that, and it was just talking about how they were going to get a new panda. That was a death, and it was barely looked at. A few weeks later, the article about his dad was published, and Izuku's mom, Inko, had to go get him a new phone because his was thrown at the wall. The man that killed his friend, his awesome, funny friend, the only one other than his mom that had treated him like he was an actual person. He was dead, and his murderer had just been given a year of jail time. A year. Izuku researched the judge that oversaw his sentencing. Turns out all cases where the victim was a quirkless person was always lax with the perpetrator. He would try to get the case dismissed for having insufficient evidence that was most of the time foolproof. And those with very terrible crimes that was made public was given a light sentence. Izuku thought the justice system would be against this, but it turns out he was on the bench for about 25 years. Izuku cried that night when justice was not served for his dead friend. After that, more of his friends from the chat started to leave, and by leave, I mean they would either get killed or kill themselves. Izuku couldn't take it anymore. He deleted his account from the chat because he could not take losing his friends left and right to death. Izuku wonders sometimes if that's how he's going to go, either by getting killed by a quirk bigot or if he's going to give up and commit suicide. Ring, ring, ring. Izuku was snapped out of his inner recap of the unfair society. He saw everyone was packing up their bags or getting out of the classroom as soon as can be. School was over for the week, and now he had the weekend to do whatever he wanted. The recap wasn't a good idea because Izuku would not move from his seat. He was getting anxious. "D minute not now," he thought. "There is still about a third of the class that is still in here. Why couldn't they just leave when the bell rings?" Izuku's anxiety was getting worse as the seconds passed. His hands were starting to shake. Izuku then remembered the one thing his mother told him to do if he was starting to panic. If you ever feel scared or uncomfortable, then reach up and feel your necklace. It will make everything better again. He remembered his mother's words. He reached inside his school jacket and brought out a shiny silver necklace that was hidden because of the no jewelry rule of Aldera. It wasn't anything special to anyone that saw it. But to Izuku, it was sometimes the most important thing in his life in these kinds of situations. Its design was not anything special. It was the size of an American silver dollar. It was a sort of coin like with various symbols drawn on the side. In the center was a light blue crystal that was possibly the most appealing jewel that Izuku has ever seen. He brought it to his chest and was rubbing his fingers over it. Minute by minute, he felt his anxiety drop. When he was still a kid, he used to say his necklace was magic. This brought a huge smile to Inko's face for reasons he did not know, but was happy all the less to see her smile. Now he just thinks that it's a sort of psychology type of thing, like that this certain object represents safety in his mind, and his body is reacting to it. Yeah, that's probably it. After he is fully calm, he looks up and pales. He was the only one left in the classroom. How much time had gone by? He looked at the clock and paled further. It was already 3 o'clock. He had been here for 25 minutes panicking. "I've got to get home," he exclaimed to himself. He quickly put his necklace back in his jacket and put all his school supplies into his yellow backpack and raced out of the classroom. He turned to the other hallway and saw his homeroom teacher walking the hall. Izuku quickly halted in his running, knowing that his teacher would get mad at him more often than other students just for petty things. Before he could even get past him, though, Midoriya, his teacher, called out to him in a stern tone. "I hope you won't be tardy with that assignment I gave you," he told the boy. Even though he said it calmly, there was a hint of venom in his voice. Izuku did not expect this. "Oh, why, yeah, I won't be. I'll turn it in as soon as possible," he assured the teacher. His teacher started him sewn a bit longer. "Considering you were daydreaming in class, I should hope so." He broke eye contact. What? That's why he was talking to me now. He was warning me for something so brief that it didn't even last 5 minutes. The other students were slacking off way more than I was. What the hell? I was just remembering something, so it's not that big of a distraction. He smiled through saying it when he wanted to tell him to go to hell. Plus, weren't the others procrastinating way more than I was? He asked already knowing the answer, but he wanted to know if today it was everyone or just him to his teacher. I recall the other students working diligently in their studies. And you should really worry about yourself, not your classmates. He reprimanded Izuku. "You butt." He wanted to scream at him. They were not. He was actually working hard with his schoolwork and has been working his butt off. It's when I take 5 minutes to go into my mind, suddenly I'm a delinquent. And seriously, those other assholes were slacking off and doing anything other than doing their work. Yes, sir, he sighed defeated. There wasn't anything he could do without getting HM in more trouble. He bowed his head. I'll try not to do it again in the future. Make sure that you don't or else I'll have to write you up. His teacher warned, then walked past him. Something so insignificant would set off his teacher. He had it out for the quirkless greenite. Izuku didn't move until he was sure his teacher was gone. He lifted his head and had a fight to keep tears from falling. That teacher was such an butt. He quickly raced towards the entrance of the school. Izuku quickly put on his signature red shoes. As he was exiting the school, he could feel a single tear slide down his cheek. He hated how he was treated by everyone. He hated that just because you don't have a quirk you get treated like CRP. No matter how nice you are, how smart, or how hardworking, you still get treated like CRP. On his walk home, he took out his necklace and began rubbing it. A few minutes later, he was a bit better and now halfway home. He could still feel the bitterness about it, but it wasn't about to explode like it was a while ago. He put the necklace back inside his jacket when he neared his apartment building. Maybe spending time with Mom will cheer me up a bit. He thought hopefully. His mother always cheered him up. After all, she was the one person in the world that has always loved him. He finally got to his home and walked up the steps to his apartment. He didn't see any of his neighbors, not like they would ever say hi to him. They would always just glance at him, then carry on with whatever they were doing. Even when Izuku would greet them with a smile, he never received one back. He didn't mind that much, though. It was like everywhere else. When he reached his door, he saw that there was a piece of paper taped to it, up on the roof. Winking face, it was written in green ink. He quickly deduced that it was from his mom, and it was for him. She must be in the greenhouse. He unlocked the door and went to his room to change his clothes so he could head up. He had put on a gray shirt on that said Happy Nerd on it, and some jeans. He was about to head up when he glanced at a photo propped up on his desk. It was an old Polaroid photo of him and Katsuki. They were both 4 years old, and they were side-hugging while smiling at the camera. This brought a wave of nostalgia to Izuku. He missed him so much. They were best friends. Now, Katsuki can't even look at him without disgust. He missed him so much that he hoped one day that they would be friends again. Miss you, Kakin. He spoke out loud to no one in particular. He proceeded outside. To get to the roof, he had to go up on the top floor and then go to the ladder at the far end of the apartments. He had no idea how his mom got anything up here when they had to use a ladder, but he didn't really question it much. What was on the roof was a glass greenhouse basically as tall as 2 floors. And it was as wide as the entire building, so it was basically huge. He went inside and was greeted with the smell of multiple flowers and herbs. Such a calming scent. He surveyed the tables of pots with various flowers. Some in full bloom, some still growing. He didn't see his mom in here. He was about to call out to her when she beat him to it. I'm in the back, sweetie. Inko called out. He always wondered how she did that. He could not make a noise, and yet she could still hear him as if she were right next to him. He had not made a noise when he came in, so it still pretty spooked him. Coming, he replied. Inko's quirk was attraction of small objects. She always said it was not that great of a quirk, but she still had one, and it was better than not having one at all. Izuku sometimes wondered if her quirk was enhanced hearing since she always knew when Izuku was near or anyone else. When he finally got to the back of the greenhouse, his mother was kneeling to grab a few small bags of soil. She was wearing a sun hat and gardening gloves with some mud on them. He went to go help her with the bags. She looked up as he helped her. She smiled. Hi, sweetie. How was school? She asked. He didn't want to tell her it was bad. She looked like she was in a good mood. It was fine, he replied. I just have to write a 1-page paper over the weekend on a chapter of the book we're reading. Well, as long as it was good. She smiled. She proceeded to set the soil bags on the table opposite to her. Izuku followed suit. Her smile always made him feel better. And this is exactly what he needed. She was taking out some small pots to work on. Anything interesting today? She asked while still working with filling the pot. He immediately brightened up when he remembered what happened this morning on his way to school. Oh yeah, there was this fight downtown. And then there was this hero that totally kicked his butt. He had a quirk that turned anything he blew into turn into helium, and it would float like a balloon. He used several cars to stop the villain from getting away with the money he robbed from the store. He trapped him in a huge car cage and was awesome. I swear it was so cool I wrote it all down in my journal. He ran it on like that with absolute glee. His mother would never get tired of hearing how much he loved heroes and how smart he was. This continued for a little while before he had to stop to breath. He would always continue to mumble on about stuff, either till somebody stopped him or if he were about to pass out. It was usually the latter. While he was catching his breath, his mother snickered a bit of how cute he was at the moment. Anyway, that about how it went. The villain got captured, and the hero got his picture taken like 6 times. I was about to ask him a few questions about his quirk, but he stopped when he didn't want to tell his mom about this part. He scratched behind his head. But Inko raised an eyebrow. What did he do? He looked down as he continued. I saw that I was 10 minutes late. Izuku confessed. His mother had an emotionless face as she stared at her son. Izuku hated this stare. This was the stare that was determining if she was mad or not. This stare went on for a little bit. Izuku's sweat dropped. Then in an instant, it was gone and replaced by a smile. Well, that's not that bad. She went back to pouring the soil into the pot. Izuku fell over. She gave me the stare to tell me it was not that bad. She really knew how to make him squirm. Did your teachers get mad at you? She spoke as he was getting off the ground. No. Izuku terribly lied. What did they tell you? She picked up on a lie with ease. She loved her son to death, but she could not deny that her son was a horrible liar. They told me if I did it again, I would get sent to the principal's office. Izuku deadpanned. Why can't I lie for SHD, he thought. If they have a problem with you being a few minutes late, then tell them to call me. I have a few words for them. She told her son, with ferocity, barely keeping reined in. A few minutes is not that bad. And if they sent her baby to the principal's office just for being a bit late, then there would be hell to pay. She knew how they treated her son, just because he didn't have what other people had. She wanted to do something desperately. You made a promise. This is how regular humans and kids handle their life. She thought. She had at least tried to call the school to talk to them about the bullying and the discrimination, but they flat out denied it and threatened to expel Izuku if she did not back off. She thought about putting him in a different school. Somewhere at least not as bad. But the other schools didn't take in quirkless students unless they paid a fee for quirkless insurance, as some people called it. It was to make sure that if anything happened to the student that was quirk-related, then they would have to use the money to carry out all the CRP the school needed to do when an incident like that occurs. Inko knew that it was complete bullshit. The schools were just trying to give a reason for parents not to enroll their kids into the school. And the people who still paid up was basically a mortgage of their house and debt. I will never get used to how unbelievable humans could be, she thought. Mom. M.O.M. Izuku startled her out of her thinking. Are you okay? You zoned out for a bit. Sorry, sweetie. I was just thinking about something for a minute. She smiled, embarrassed. What were you saying? She asked. He looked down, a little embarrassed. When was the last time we went to go watch a movie? He asked her. He wanted to do something this weekend. Inko looked up to remember when the last time was. I guess it has been a while. She concluded that it was about a month ago. What would you like to see? Wow, that was easy, he thought. He thought that it would be harder to convince her. Well, there's that new movie theater that just opened a few weeks ago. Yesterday was the premiere of that new comedy, That's That. Remember we saw a trailer for it last week. He hopes you want to watch it. He needed a good laugh. Oh yeah, that trailer was real funny. It seemed like it would be something good to watch. Let's get out of the house for a bit. She decided. Izuku smiled brightly at that. He was going to spend time with his mother and see a good movie. Can we go tonight? He asked, hoping for a yes. He leaned in. Inko nodded. After dinner, okay. She told her exited son. He jumped up in the air with big excitement. Then he ran out after he called out. I'm going to go finish my homework before, so I don't have to worry about it over the weekend. He didn't wait for her reply. She smiled at how happy her son was. It always made her happy that her son was happy. A flower in front of her that was still needed to grow a bit had started to get bigger in size when a tiny pod had formed. It started to get bigger and bigger and bigger until it had bloomed into a bright orange marigold. Inko had sighed at the appealing flower. She caressed the soft petals with her ungloved hand. Izuku once asked how she had the best green thumb he had ever seen. This whole greenhouse was hers, and she kept it up in amazing shape. She replied with, "I don't have a green thumb. I have green hair." It was a stupid joke, but Izuku had laughed at it. She sighs heavily again. Just because she said she wouldn't use her powers doesn't mean that her powers won't use themselves. She was glad that Izuku didn't see that. For hours later, Izuku had put the last of the clean dish on the dish rack. He was finally done, and with 20 minutes to spare, he grabbed his jacket and ran to his mom's bedroom door. "Mama, dishes are done. Are you ready?" he called out. She had to change clothes since she had mud on her other ones. She opened the door. "Ready," she said. She had on a change of clothes, her signature red cardigan around her. She went back to the living room to grab her wallet. Money, ID, cute baby photos. Yep, everything was in here and ready to go. She headed to the front door and saw Izuku was just finishing tying his shoes. She looked at the shoe rack and picked out a pair of tennis shoes. She had no idea how in the name of all the gods that humans wore heels. They were, in her opinion, miniature torture devices. She had declared ever since they were made that she would never ever wear these. She had kept well on that promise and was not planning on breaking it. She finished tying them up, and they, mother and son, both exited the apartment. Locking the apartment door, they headed down. It was already dark out. However, the streetlights and the cars going by was plenty of light to navigate through the city. Downtown was only a few blocks away, and Inko didn't own a car. Izuku didn't mind, though. He liked walking out in the night. It only took 15 minutes to get to the movie theater with 4 minutes to spare. They paid for their tickets. It wasn't that expensive. As they were about to enter the doors, Izuku glanced to his left. He saw 4 big guys in a group over by the next building with duffel bags. He wondered what that was about. He hoped nothing bad. They were looking all around nervously, and they were wearing dark clothing. Izuku got a look at one of their faces. His hood was up, but he could see a tattoo of a red diamond over his eye. He was getting more and more suspicious. "Hey, let's go, we're going to miss it." His mother startled him out of his stare. She seized his hand and dragged him inside with a smile. "Mom, there's previews, remember," he reminded her with an embarrassed face. "People are watching. But that's the best part," she retorted with a smirk. He sweat dropped. His mother was so weird sometimes. 1 hour into the movie, Izuku and Inko were enjoying the movie. They laughed with the audience about how crazy and well thought out lines from the movie. Izuku had left to go buy some popcorn before the movie began. He forgot how much movie theater popcorn was so much better than home-cooked popcorn. He was right about this. He really did need a good laugh to make today not terrible. And he was with his mom, so he was happy and felt safe. Inko looked to the side to see her son focused on the movie that he didn't realize that the popcorn bucket was now empty. He just kept reaching in and grabbing at air and place it in his mouth, only for him to not chew anything and repeat. When he was truly focused on something, it was nearly impossible to get him out of it. There was about a half hour left of the movie. They could just relax and laugh and have a good time. But as luck would have it, that wasn't going to be the case for tonight. Inko out of nowhere gasped and then grabbed her son and crouched down at the floor. She covered his head. Blast! A huge explosion had came from the side of the wall of the theater. A lot of debris had gone everywhere. A giant hole was now the new addition of the theater room. A lot of people stared at the dusty hole, for black silhouettes were coming out of the hole. When the dust died down, it revealed to be 4 masked men with guns and heavy-looking duffel bags. Izuku realized that those were the men outside the theater. He was still tucked in his mom's arms. The man at the front of the group pointed his pistol up and shot at the ceiling. The gunshot was enough to get everyone in the theater to start running for their lives to the exit. The mother-son duo had ran with the crowd. Oh God, someone needs to call the police, Izuku thought. His mother was holding onto his hand and in front of him, dragging him with all her speed. It was getting a bit harder for him to hang on since there was people racing all around them. The hall was crowded and people were running for their lives, so no one cared if they were hurting a teenager. They were squishing him. The hold on his mother's hand was now very strained. They tried to hold tight to each other. One person had rammed into Izuku's hand and broke the hold from his mother. "MOM!" he screamed over the roaring crowd, the look of horror on his face. Inko's face turned in a horror as well as soon as her grip with her son was severed. "Baby!" They tried to get back to each other, but the crowd was going against them. They were both carried away with a stampede of people. They would both make it to the front. They would meet the other outside in the front. They went with the stampede. Doors were busted open of the theater, and people were screaming and fighting to get out of the door first. Izuku was out of the doors now and onto the street where people were still running everywhere, but it was less crowded. He stopped and looked all around. His mother must be somewhere, right? He heard few more shots coming from the theater. He turned his head and got even more worried. Oh God, where was his mom? Not only was he scared for his life, but he was also scared for her life as well. She was the only one that he genuinely cared about anymore. She was his only family. He didn't know what he'd do if he had lost her. Oh God, what if she got shot by those robbers? What if she got injured by the stampede and needed help? What if she got lost and was now looking for him? He didn't know what to do. Where the hell were the heroes when you needed them? He got knocked down by another running person. He scraped his arm on the sidewalk. It burned pretty bad. It was red and bleeding and about 7 inches long. The person didn't even look back. Izuku quickly recovered and was back on his feet, looking everywhere for his mom. He stopped when he spotted an individual that was holding their side and was heading into an ally. Did they get shot by the robbers? Izuku quickly raced towards the ally to try to help the person. He was pretty sure he was the only one that saw them, so he was the only one that could help them. Izuku raced in the ally and could barely see. The street lamps didn't reach this far, so he had to go with his gut. He was now pretty far into the ally when he saw the hunched-over person leaning on the wall. He looked like he was breathing heavily. Izuku quickly raced to them. Hey, are you Oka? He was cut off by the guy grabbing him and shoving him against the wall. He could now see the person that was holding him against the wall. It was a tall, bald-headed man with a tattoo over his eye of a red diamond like in cards. His heart stopped after seeing that. It was the same guy that was outside the building. He realized what he had done. He had followed a robber into a secluded place. Oh God, someone help me. The robber produced a knife from his back pocket and held it up to Izuku's throat. He backed into the wall as much as he could, but the knife was still touching his skin. You're gonna help me, kid, the robber stated. Somebody had a gun and shot at me and my boys. He didn't get to celebrate since I filled him up with lead a second later. He boasted. He laughed. Izuku looked down and saw that there was BLD pouring out of his side. Izuku was now breathing heavily. This man was laughing about killing a guy. Tears were spilling out of his eyes. He was so scared right now, he couldn't think. Don't cry, you little SHD. I'm pretty sure someone called the cops by now, and I don't have an out. So here's how this is going to go down. You be a good little hostage to shield me from the police and the heroes so I can make it out of here. And you could get out of this unharmed. Or you could be a little SHD and try to do something stupid, and you get this in your pretty little head. He showed his knife and held the point up to Izuku's forehead. Izuku was full-on shaking right now. Someone please help. He mentally screamed. So, what the gone he got cut off? Izuku, both child and robber, looked at the end of the alleyway to see Inko staring at them wide-eyed and in horror. Said boy took this as an opportunity and pushed at the robber. It barely worked while he was off guard by getting him maybe a foot away. Izuku tried to get away. He fell and hurt his ankle on a piece of metal that was laying around. He tripped and fell to his side. He quickly looked up and saw the guy lunge at him with his knife. Izuku screamed and covered his face with his arms, trying to defend himself. He shut his eyes out of fear. He heard a loud squelch sound, but he did not feel anything. Was he dead, and it was just that quick? He opened his eyes and looked up. The man was standing still with his mouth opened and eyes wide. The knife was still in his hands, but he wasn't moving. He was barely shacking like something had frozen him. SQLCH. He heard again, and the man collapsed on his side. Izuku now saw what had happened. There was a hole in his back, and it looked like it was deep. He gasped at the sight. He's dead. The boy looked up and paled, and this time he was sure his heart stopped. The sight before him would haunt anyone who gazed at the sight. Izuku's mother, Inko, was right behind where the man stood a few seconds ago, and she clutched in her hand the man's heart. The person that was just alive, not even a minute ago, had his heart ripped out, and his mother had done it. She had killed a man. Her hand was caked in BLD. She was breathing heavily, her eyes wide with shock as well. Izuku couldn't move. He was paralyzed. Inko let go of the heart, and it fell to the ground right near the corpse. Inko raced to where her son was and kneeled to him to help him up. She used both hands on his underarms to help him and accidentally got BLD on his jacket. She put both hands on his shoulders. "Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" she questioned, her eyes scanning his body for any injuries. "Why you KK killed?" He stuttered. He could form a sentence. He was in shock. Sirens were the next thing both heard. They turned their heads to the end of the alleyway and saw blue and red lights approaching. Inko quickly wrapped Izuku up in a hug, and out of nowhere green flames sprouted from their feet and traveled up both of their legs. Before Izuku knew it, the green flame had engulfed them entirely. But just as quick as it happened, it dissipated, and they were not in the downtown alleyway anymore. They were outside their apartment building. What the hell just happened? His mother let go of him, and both mother and son looked at each other. Izuku was still very much in shock of what just happened in the last 5 minutes. This was too much for his mind to handle. Inko was the one to break the silence. "I always knew that you would find out. I just wished it wasn't like this." She gestured to her bloodied hand. She let out a huge sigh. She now had a sad smile. "It's time I tell you the truth. After the shootout by the robbers, and Inko murdering one of said robbers, the duo was back inside their apartment building. Izuku was currently sitting on the couch, staring at the TV. The TV was playing a news report of the downtown shootout. Izuku was in shock of the last half hour. Robbers and guns were one thing, but his mom ripping out someone's heart. Also how they somehow teleported by fire back to their home. Usually if this was a hero or a quirk thing, he would be nose deep in his journal scribbling as much down as possible. But he knew his mother's quirk. It was attraction of small objects, not ripping out organs of people and fire teleportation. That was completely insane. He could barely pay attention to what was being reported. His mind was spiraling out of control. Inko was in the kitchen washing the BLD of her hand and trying to scrub the BLD off her cardigan. She was scrubbing the sleeve with a sponge. She was glancing back to look at her son from time to time. She knew that feeling. She'd seen it time and time again. She really wished her son hadn't seen that. Now her baby is in shock, and the secret is out there. Inko had known that she would have to tell him eventually. It was inevitable. God damn it. When she saw that disgusting man hold a knife to her baby, she lost it. She didn't care about the promise she had made. She had just wanted to protect Izuku. Now she must explain to Izuku how she did that, and how she teleported them back to their home. She put down the sponge and her ruined cardigan. It wasn't salvageable. She got a paper towel and doused it with warm water. She knew she had to clean Izuku up. She had accidentally got a bit of BLD on his face. She walked over to the couch where her son was frozen. She sat down next to him and got no response of her presence. If he knows she's right next to him, then he's doing a great job at hiding it. Wait, the TV was on. He was focused on that, not her. She turned the TV up a bit louder to see what the news was reporting. The unidentified robbers that stolen from the downtown bank of Mizutofu are in critical condition after being shot by an unidentified civilian. Police say one of the perpetrators is deceased. He was killed seemingly in a morbid manner. Any individuals who know anything about the death of G-. The TV was turned off. Izuku had finally noticed his mother right beside him. Inko raised her hand with the rag. Izuku flinched away. He was scarred if he... How could she blame him? She raised the damp rag to wipe off the BLD off his cheek. He froze. Not knowing how to react, he just let her wipe the BLD of his cheek. He tried to focus on anything else other than his mother's face. He felt how cold the water was of the wet towel. He felt how the scrape on his arm kept burning and stinging. He felt if he looked at his mother right now, he would break down in tears. He reached up and held his necklace tight. Inko looked down to what her son was doing. He's gonna want to take that off once I tell him. She finished wiping it all off her son's face. She did not want to overstimulate him, but that was proving to be very difficult. She dropped the bloody towel on the coffee table. He did not look up. His eyes were focused on his lap. She heavily sighed. She was ready to tell him. SHD Izuku. Baby. She broke the silence. I know you're scarred about what happened, and I don't blame you. But you need to look at me so I can explain. She put her hands on his hand that was holding the necklace. His grip on the necklace tightened. He was shaking. I know what I did was very scary. But why I did it to protect you from that man. And if I had another chance to protect you, I would do it all. Over again. she declared. She did not regret killing that man, not even a little bit, especially if you were about to hurt her baby. He shot his head up. But did you have to kill him? He questioned. His eyes were shining with tears. And how did you do that anyway? Super strength isn't your quirk. Izuku was asking questions that she had answers to. Her baby never liked death at all, even if it was someone bad. He was about to stab you with a knife. She explained. What was I supposed to do? Izuku opened his mouth to say something, but quickly closed it since she was right. I don't know. He wanted to say not kill him or get a hero, but he would have been dead. He knew it without a doubt. If his mother didn't do what she did, he could have been another quirkless dead kid. Collateral damage, as some news reports would say. What she did was not what a hero would have done, but she wasn't a hero. She was his mother. He was having a hard time accepting what she did. But he couldn't hate her for protecting him. And he loved her. He was never going to think anything else about his mother. He had no response for her. He looked back down at his lap. Inko now had to explain to her son, who she has been lying to for his whole life, that their lives were not what he thought at all. Izuku, I'm going to tell you right now something only very few know. She explained. He looked back up in confusion. What was she talking about? He was about to ask when he winced from his scrape and held his arm. Inko stared at him in confusion. She closed her eyes and she sniffed the air. Her eyes opened in concern. Izuku, you're bleeding. She moved closer to him and started to take off his jacket. How did she know that? No BLD has seeped through his jacket. There wasn't a speck of red among the sky blue fabric. What the hell? She removed it and placed it behind him. Right she was. There smeared BLD all around the scrape of his left arm. It was large. He needed to put some ointment on it so it doesn't get infected. Here, let me help you. Inko moved her hand to his wound, but he grabbed her hand. First, tell me how you did that. There was no BLD, and you somehow knew I was hurt. How? He pleaded for an answer. His eyes were full of desperation. Inko looked into her son's eyes and sighed. He wasn't going to let her help until he was given an answer. She sighed. To tell you without revealing what I'm going to reveal to you, in hopes it won't get confusing. It's not a quirk. She stopped after that. She needed to tell him from the beginning, or else it would get confusing. After a few seconds, he released her hand. That was all he was going to get for right now. He could wait a few more minutes. She moved her hand towards his wound. Wait, doesn't she need a med kit? He thought in confusion. She placed her hand on the scrape. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the same green furs that had teleported them had erupted from her palm and was pressed into his arm. He yelped. Eahimoam, what are you doing? He exclaimed. She was going to hurt him more. If she did hear him, she didn't show it. He tried to pull away. But before he could, he realized something odd. It wasn't hot. He was frozen in confusion. Inko focused on her hand that was still emitting the green fire. Wasn't fire supposed to be hot, especially if it's right against his skin? He had plenty of experience from Kakin when he would get violent. It was definitely supposed to hurt. But this fire was not hurting at all. In fact, it was nice, rather soothing. Like all the nerves in his arm just decided to relax and feel a peaceful numbness of coolness. And just a few seconds more she was done, and she retracted her hand, and the fire had disappeared. Not only had the fire disappeared, but the scrape on Izuku's arm has now disappeared. Izuku gasped at his now healed arm. There was nothing there, not even a scar. The BLD was gone as well. There wasn't a hint of a wound even being there. Izuku touched his arm. He was right. There was nothing but smooth skin, no BLD, not even a hint of anything there that would signal a scrape. He looked at his mother in shock. She had a smile on her face. All better? She asked. He nodded. Her smile grew wider. Now comes the hard part. Okay, now I'm going to tell you everything. About quirks, about the world, about us, and our family. She explained. One thing stuck out of the bombshell sentence that his mother just said. About us. One question now spiraled into the 13-year-old's mind. What are we? She now had a sad smile. She reached out and patted his head. She was afraid, yet also excited to tell him. Let's do this. What do you know about quirks? He opened his mouth to respond with his entire knowledge. She realized her mistake and quickly put her hand over his mouth to silence him. I didn't mean your entire knowledge. I just meant the beginning of them. She removed her hand. That would have been bad, and they would have been there for a few days. Well, I know that one day, Over 200 years ago, a baby emitted light from his body. Since then, more people around the world developed supernatural abilities. No one knows why these abilities manifested. All of the world started to develop abilities except 20% of the world. He stopped explained after saying that last sentence. He was talking about himself. All right, you pretty much got the gist of it, but except the last part. She kept a smile on her face. Huh, what does she mean by that? You should just listen to her instead of inner monologuing. Long ago, before quirks were even a thing, before technology was even a concept, there were beings in the world. They aren't human, and they were of extreme power. More powerful than quirks can even become. What helped these beings live was mana in the universe. Mana is a supernatural force everywhere. One day, the leader of these beings decided that humans were so repulsive and disgusting that she decided that all of the beings would leave for a different universe. She paused her story. She bowed her head and frowned like she was remembering a sad memory. The atmosphere in the apartment changed dramatically. The temperature dropped a bit. Izuku scanned the room as to find out what was causing it. The flowers around the room that were bloomed and healthy had somehow slowly lost their color from green to brown. The petals of the flowers had slowly wilted and fell off. The flowers were dying. Izuku stared in confusion as to why this was happening when he turned back to his mother. She was causing this, wasn't she? He placed his hand on hers. She looked up and was greeted with a comforting smile. She grew one as well after seeing her baby trying to cheer her up. Now feeling a bit better, she continued. When these beings left, the mana didn't know what else to do since it no longer kept the beings much alive anymore in the world. So it started to get bored, and before you ask, yes, mana can have feelings, it's very weird. She sounded a bit annoyed. Oh, okay. He didn't know how to respond to that. The mana started to mess with humans a bit. What people don't know is that a person's quirk is just a tiny drop of mana. Inko stopped when her son looked like he was paralyzed. He looked like he just had a slide. She waved her hand in front of his face. CRP, she overwhelmed her child. She lightly tapped his shoulder. He was knocked out of it. H shook his head in confusion. What? He exclaimed. Inko had a nervous smile. Yeah, quirks are just tiny drops of mana, not the full thing like the being I was telling you about. And she held up a finger as a matter of fact. No human is truly quirkless. Every human has a quirk. It may be very small or completely unrecognizable, but human has a quirk. That term for quirkless is absolute CRP, she stated. Wait, does that mean what I think it means? Izuku thought. Izuku leaned in and pointed at himself. Wait, so that means I'm not quirkless. I really do have a quirk. He grew a hopeful smile. She smiled. That's a good sign, right? He thought. No, you really are quirkless. She kept that smile like it was no big deal. Izuku fell over. But she just said everyone has a quirk, so what the hell? She helped him back up on the couch. He rubbed his head. But you just said the dash. He didn't get to finish. Inko held up her hand to stop him. I said you were quirkless, not powerless. She explained. And I said every human has a quirk. She put a lot of weight on the last word. Wait, Mom, I don't understand. He was now extremely confused. She sighed. This was it. She was going to tell him. Now I'm going to tell you what I truly am. And what you truly are. She explained. Izuku dared not to say anything. The weight of the next sentence was bound to break his mind. She took a deep breath. You can do this. You can do this. You can do this. She repeated in her mind again and again. The reason I know all about how quirks formed, the reason as to how I was able to do all that stuff earlier, is because I am one of those beings. And so are you. We are kitsunes. She finally revealed. Izuku's expression was of complete shock. His eyes were open wide, his mouth open. So this was why he didn't have a quirk. He was a mythical being from folklore. And his mom was one also. Wait, but he was definitely human. He had the biology of a human and the body of one. He did not have a fox body or anything similar like that. This has to be a joke. Or a dream. That's a dream. This was just a very disturbing dream that he's going to wake up to. I know what you're thinking, and no, this is not a dream. She shot the idea down. DM in it. There was one way where he could find out if this is true. Prove it. He muttered. Sorry. Inko raised her eyebrow in confusion. Prove it, he screamed in distress. Prove to me that this isn't just some sick joke. Prove to me that what you did was not just some quirk. Prove to me if all my life I was told a lie. He whispered, yelled the last sentence. Tears gathered in the corner of his eyes. If this was true, all his life as a quirkless person, the abuse, the hatred, the loss. Oh my God, Barry didn't have to die. So many people didn't have to face the hate. No one was quirkless. But what about him? She read the distress of her son. This was all too much for him. Very well if this is what it takes. Inko faced forward and took a deep breath. It's been a while since I've done this, so I may be a bit rusty. But remember, she looked back at Izuku. This is an illusion, she explained. Izuku watched her carefully. He tried to keep his breathing calm. It was proving to be a challenge. Inko closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and exhaled. She shook her hands a bit like she was warming up. Inko interlocked her fingers in front of her and popped them. She set her hands right against her chest, palms outward. Her eyes were focused, her face emotionless. A few seconds passed, and nothing happened. The suspense was killing him. Then the room started to change and shift. The air around them started to feel heavy, like it was getting thicker, more dense. The temperature in the room dropped a bit, but not freezing. Wait, is he underwater? Before he knew it, he wasn't in his living room anymore. He was in the ocean sea level. There were light rays shining and swirling all around. There were fish swimming all over. It didn't look like they were very deep, maybe like 30 feet. There were rocks and seaweed all around them. He covered his mouth with his hands. He felt water all around him. This was real. What the hell is going on? How the hell is this happening? He was about to swim up when he felt his mother's hands on his shoulders. He looked back at her. Her expression was calm, like there was nothing wrong with their current situation. She guided him back to the couch that was surprisingly underwater, along with them. He sat down, but he was still panicking. Inko grasped his hands that were covering his mouth from the water. She slowly moved his hands away. To his surprise, he could breathe just fine. His mother grabbed his attention. Remember, this is an illusion, she reminded him. He was nervous to believe her because this felt real. Everything right now felt real. He felt the resistance from the water. He opened his mouth, and to his shock, he could still breathe normally. This wasn't real. Then why did it feel so real? He looked to his mother, waiting for an explanation. She didn't seem like she was going to give him one. She waved her hand above them. The area was seeming to change. The water was now gone, and the fish were gone now. All thing relating to the sea was now gone. What took its place was a river and the sun. A peeling grass overtook the area. They were surrounded by mountains with trees all over. In front of them was a majestic waterfall. Izuku gasped at this. This was amazing. He thought, this was definitely not a quirk. This was way too powerful to be a quirk. He never heard of a quirk do anything like this before. An illusion quirk would create the scenery, but that would be it. It wouldn't bring the feeling like this was. This place was giving the sounds of the waterfall. It was giving off the light reflections from the water. He felt the warmth of the sun. This was peaceful. He felt so much at peace right now. He needed this after so much of the night turning into hell. He needed this. He felt like he could breathe. Inko saw the serenity state her son was in after so much grief. She hugged him, and he didn't fight it. He leaned in to lay his head on her shoulder. He closed his eyes and relaxed. He felt his hair being pet. His mother was there to comfort him whenever she could. After a few minutes, he got up. He wanted to stay in this moment for as long as he could, but he had to find out more. This isn't a quirk, Izuku asked rhetorically. Inko shook her head lightly. He gazed back at the appealing scenery. It's appealing. This you ought to practice, he asked in bewilderment. She gave a nervous chuckle. Well, yeah, but considering how powerful I am, I guess it's normal. Izuku's head tilted in confusion. How powerful are you, Mom? He asked. She waved her hand, and just like that, they were back in their apartment living room. Illusions aren't the only thing I can do. I could do a lot more stuff. And it's not just me that's powerful. Kitsunes are in general enormously powerful. I mean, all kitsunes are born with these powers. However, they're like physical bodies. At first, they start out small, but with time and practice, they can get stronger. She explained to her son. Wait, something just occurred to me. If you were around long enough for the genesis of quirks, and if you say that with time and practice powers get a lot stronger, but you said that you were out of practice, which means you haven't used your powers in a long time, and I definitely have never seen you do anything more that levitate a few things towards you. And you said you were extremely powerful, but you're a kitsune, so that means in their terms you are not like other kitsunes, but you're like one of kind so. That moo dash, he muttered on, but was cut off by his mother cutting him off with her hand in his mouth. Sweetie, I love you, but get to the point or you're going to pass out from ranting. She insisted with a deadpan expression. She removed her hand from his mouth. He was kind of worried to ask this question since his mother has always told him never to ask someone their age. Mom, how old are you? The room stilled. She had that face now. The face that always gave him the chills. SHD, he asked the wrong question. A few moments of agonizing silence passed before anything happened. Izuku's sweat dropped. Inko finally moved. She reached down to her pocket and produced her phone. She turned on the camera and pointed it at him. What is she doing? Mom, what are you doing? He wondered why she was recording him now. If I'm going to tell you my age, I am definitely getting your reaction on video. She smirked, a little mischief in her voice. This is not going to go well, he thought. All right, now how old do I look? She questioned him. This was obviously a trap. To her, he was not going to guess right. Well, why you look like you're in your early 40s. But from what you have said so far, and from the information on kitsunes, I think you're about somewhere around 200 years old. He guessed. He hoped to whatever deity was out there that he was right. She smiled evilly. She was going to save this video forever. Sorry baby, you're not even half close. She responded. I actually am 5,454. She revealed. Izuku now had an extremely shocked expression. He screamed in complete horror. Tears sprouted from his eyes. Inko is so glad she recorded this. And now her son was hyperventilating. She stopped recording and hugged her son. Okay, baby, deep breaths, just like we practiced. She coaxed him to calm down after a few minutes. Once he finally calmed down, he couldn't remove his eyes from his mother. His over 5,000-year-old mother. His mother raised her hand, and a glass floated towards her outstretched hand. She brought it in front of her son and tapped the glass with a finger twice. Water began filling the glass from the bottom out of nowhere. Izuku grabbed the glass of water and chugged it. Some water spilled from the corners of his mouth. He was done. He looked to his mother. I'm definitely going to lie down after this. He told her. That's definitely for the best, sweetie. She agreed with him, but she had more to explain to him. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. She assumed. He nodded frantically. There was a few more things he had to know. Well, ask away, she stated. How come you're still here? You said the queen made all of them leave, right? Then why are we here? He wondered. She sighed. Many didn't want to leave and asked the queen if they could stay. She didn't like that, but she declared for those who truly wished to stay must sacrifice something of great importance to them. She bowed her head. She didn't want to tell her son about his father, but she had to. This is where your father came in, she explained. He gasped. Dad, your dad was also a powerful kitsune, almost like me. He wanted for us to stay as well. We tried to offer up anything we could think of. Artifacts, old scriptures, the Mona Lisa. She answered. Wait, what? He asked suddenly about them having an extremely famous painting. I'll tell you later, she replied, not wanting to tell him how she compelled the museum to give her one of the most famous paintings in the world. In her defense, she put it back. Anyway, the queen did not accept any of the offerings we gave up. We did not know what to do. Your father then offered the queen something in order for me to stay and the rest of his family to stay. Oh, by the way, you have cousins. She revealed the extended family on his father's side. Wadash, he didn't get to finish since she put her finger on his lips to silence him. Another time. Oh, come on. He pouted, but he let her continue. Your father made the ultimate sacrifice to let me and the others stay. She didn't want to say it. It was too painful, but she had to. Your father sacrificed his life. She shuddered. A tear slid down her cheek. Izuku gasped. The revelation of his father he did not expect. When he asked his mother about him in the past, she would always say he loved him and her, and she would never forget him and hope to one day see him again. He knew he was dead, but to die willingly for the people he loved. Their love must have been real. Inko sniffed and wiped at her eyes and continued. The queen accepted this and let us stay. I watched as your father died in front of me. I begged him not to. He said he loved me, and then he told me to have you. She explained the memory form 200 years ago. Izuku had a pained expression written on his face. A question or two lingered in the back of his head. He didn't want to disturb his mom in the painful memory, but he had to know. Mom, how does a kitsune die? And how was I born? The latter held a lot of weight. Inko looked back up and wiped her eyes. The first one she could explain. The second she really didn't want to because he was way too young, but maybe she could put it in kid-friendly terms. Kitsunes are immortal. For us, that means we're not on a time limit like humans are. Each year they get older, they get weaker. Kitsunes can age to any number and death won't come for us. Inside a kitsune's heart is a pearl. That pearl is about the size of American silver dollar. We can get burned, decapitated, shot, stabbed, poisoned, and we would not die. But if that pearl shatters, then that it. She explained, our pearls get stronger as we get stronger. Mine can only be shattered by another kitsune or by the strength of all might at his most powerful, she revealed. His mouth was open again. So we are immortal, but can only be killed if something in our hearts is crushed. Wait, what about his? What about mine? How strong is mine, or do I even have one? He exclaimed. He put his hand on his heart. She grew worried from his reaction. Of course you have a pearl. You're a kitsune. And to answer your other question, yours I'm assuming would only require a bullet from a gun to shatter it. She assumed. He did not know how to feel about that. And how you were born is also from the pearl. Kitsune reproductive systems are a bit different. We don't reproduce like humans do. But we like to try. She smirked evilly. Oh, my God, He covered his ears. He did not want to hear about that. She chuckled. When your father died, his pearl was given to me, and after a few decades of being sad, I finally decided to have a kid of my own. The shards of a pearl are what needed to have a baby, or more specifically a shard. She put more emphasis on the last word. Before you ask, the pearl has to completely shatter for a kitsune to die. It's okay if a piece breaks off. It heals over time. She explained. Okay, he responded. Kitsune physiology is already overly complicated, he thought. So yeah, after almost 2 centuries, I decided to have you. And that's how you were born. She finished talking about him being conceived. I don't know how to feel after being told I'm born from a broken piece of a life force gem. He thought. Anything else you wish to know about? She asked him. There were about 1,000,000 things he wanted to know. But one thing from earlier made it to the top of the list. Mom, you said I was quirkless but not powerless, but what? Did you mean by that? I mean, you said I wasn't human, so that's why I don't have a quirk. But I'm a kitsune, so I'm supposed to have all sorts of wicked powers. But I don't. Why? He whispered the last word, the question carrying so much weight. This was the part where she was dreading the most. When he was diagnosed as quirkless, she saw how destroyed he was. It was heartbreaking to see a kid, especially her kid, think their dream was destroyed. Over her long life, she has seen how humanity has treated people just because they're different. Usually she would stop mistreatment whenever she could. But ever since she resigned to a life of a human, she couldn't do anything. There were so many times where she wanted to use her powers to beat some sense into people. And there were definitely times where she had to restrain herself from killing humans that harassed her son. And it was all because of that DMN promise. She thought bitterly. She reached down and grasped his necklace and held it up. The reason you can't use your powers is because of this. She stated. He looked at it confused. He held it with her hand. I don't understand. He told her. She let out a breath she had been holding. Before your father sacrificed himself, he asked me to promise him something. He asked me to live life like a human. He asked for you to do as well. She remembered. He was starting to understand, but let her continue. There was obviously more. I asked him why he wanted me to do that. He told me because he didn't want me or his future child to know life of a species that was not there anymore. He said it would be cruel to live in a world where you were considered an endangered species. Your father told me it would be a horrible world where everyone you meet is a shadow to you within a few decades. She revealed. Izuku was somehow getting what his father meant. When you live for a very long time, it would be hard to live when people you care about would die before you did. He was starting to understand, but he didn't like it. Back then, when kitsunes were more common, we could handle it because not everyone we meet would die. It was a lot easier for us back then. I'll admit it has gotten a bit tougher being here on Earth when all you see are people who are going to die in a few decades. There are a lot of friends who I hated seeing die in front of me. I've seen so many suffer and so much joy in everyone I meet that it was torture to watch them pass on. She relived her years of sorrow, but she never regretted being their friend. She was so happy getting to know them when she had the chance. The blue shard in this necklace is a piece of your father's pearl, she revealed. His eyes widened in shock as he stared at the thing around his neck. This was supposed to be an object of peace, but instead it was actually a curse. This thing was keeping him from his true lineage. And to add salt to the wounds, his father thought he knew what was best for him when he didn't know a single thing about him. This made him angry and sad at the same time. He gripped it tightly and tried to pull it off. He pulled it forward. It wasn't breaking. The chain didn't look so strong, so why was it so difficult? He then tried a different way. Then again, then again, then again, then again. Why wasn't there a release thing on it? Didn't all necklaces have a release thing on it? He tried to pull it over his head. It was barely got halfway up his chin. This was starting to hurt. His mother watched in pity as he was trying to pull the necklace off of him. She had to stop before he hurt himself. She grabbed his hands. Izuku, only I can take it off, she told her son. He turned to her fast. Then take it off. He came off a little strong. She knew he would ask this. Izuku, believe me when I say this. I want to rip that thing off you. Hell, the only reason I agreed to that was because it was your father's dying wish, she declared. This made him question something else. Wait, you didn't want to do this. You didn't want me to live like a human, he questioned. This wasn't her choice, was it? She shook her head. She wanted to show him the wonders of being a kitsune. Human life was being ignorant, sad, trapped. As a kitsune, she felt free, but as a human, she felt caged. That's exactly what Izuku is right now. He was caged. Did you even think of taking it off before? Izuku whispered he needed to know if his mother regretted keeping him like this. She cupped his cheek. Baby, every day I want to take it off you, and it pained me so much when I put that thing on you. She recalled the days she almost did. Sometimes at night, she would hover over his bed while he was fast asleep. There were times where she was about to take it off him, but she stopped herself because of her love of her husband. Then why did you leave it on? He exclaimed while tears were gathering in his eyes. She hated seeing her kid in pain, because it was your father's dying wish. He sacrificed himself so I could stay. To break it would be like saying I never loved him, she declared. But what about me? He stood up and yelled in frustration. Don't I get a say in how I live? He questioned his mother. Sad violin music cued here. You lied to me of what I truly am, for someone who thinks he knows what's best for me, who doesn't even know me or what I've been through. He screamed at his mother. He was bullied just because he was quirkless, but instead it was because his dad decided what was best for him before he was even born. And leaving his mother no say. Inko got up and embraced him faster than he could blink. Don't I matter? He whispered. I don't want to be like this anymore. I don't want to be helpless like I have been for my entire life. I don't want to be something that I'm not, because that is horrible. I don't want my entire life to be decided by someone who doesn't know a thing about me. I want to decide what my life is going to be like. I want to be whoever I want to be, he declared. He looked his mother in the eyes. I want to at least have a choice of who I want to be instead of being decided by everyone. He wasn't just talking about the moment right now. He was talking about how the world had made the decision for him to be worthless just because he didn't have a quirk. Where he would go, who he was. This was his chance to be someone he wanted to be. Mom, please. I don't want to be someone I'm not. Take this off me. Izuku begged his mother. Inko looked at her son. He was in pain. She was his mother. Her job is to keep her little fox safe. And what he said, did he matter? Of course he mattered. He was the most important thing in her life. In all her life, her 5,454 years of living, nothing was more important to her than her own son. Her kid. Every person she has ever met in her entire life meant nothing compared to Izuku. And yet all this time, she was hurting him. She was keeping him locked up for the sake of a promise of someone she loved, but had no right in anything of her son's life. How could she be so stupid? She was one of the most powerful kitsunes, and yet she didn't see how she was being ignorant. When her love died, she didn't care what the cost was. She was going to fulfill it. He had no idea what his son was like, and yet he had decided for him that would affect his entire life. No, not anymore. She wasn't going to keep her little fox caged anymore. She wasn't going to stand aside anymore. This was her son. How dare she not protect him with everything she had? If she hadn't used her powers tonight, that man would have hurt her baby. She was going to nurture her baby to his most powerful he can be. Her son was more important than some stupid promise. She wasn't a human. She was a kitsune. And this small boy at her arms right now, spilling tears, was her son. She'd be damned if she continued this anymore. I'm sorry, my love, but our son is far more important to me than anything in existence. Literally. She kneeled down and looked Izuku directly in the eyes. She used her thumb to wipe away the tears. Okay. Izuku gasped at this and shuddered with tears still in his eyes. Izuku, I'm so sorry for being so ignorant and being such a terrible parent. You matter more to me than a DMN promise of someone who doesn't even know a single thing about you. Inko was now fighting off tears. When I do this, I need you to promise me one thing, she stated. Izuku nodded quickly. He'd so anything for this. Promise me that you will never forget that you are the most important thing to me. Izuku gasped at this condition and embraced his mother, who was still kneeling down. Never, he whispered in her ear. She let out a shuddered breath she didn't know she was holding. Her tears spilled out. She caressed the back of his head. They hugged each other tightly, as they would lose each other if either of them let go. Around them, the flowers that were previously dead were now regrowing and blooming bigger than ever before. Inko was happy her son still loved her even after this revelation. After a few minutes, they released each other. Still with tears in their eyes, they smiled at each other. Inko got up off the floor and went to the kitchen to gather supplies. Izuku was wondering what his mother was doing. Mom, what are you doing? She turned her head back to him and smiled. Well, you said to take it off of you. You need a few things for the ride. Need a few things for the ride. What did she mean? And wait. What? We're doing this now? He asked, a bit freaked out. Well, yeah. You said you wanted that thing off. And we have the weekend for the process to go through. She got a few things out of the cabinet. There's a process. He whispered to himself. You really think the second I take that thing off of you that you would be a full-on kitsune? Well, if so, then you're going to be a bit disappointed. She answered back, hearing him. Okay, that's another thing. How you can hear me from so far away. He all but shouted. She pointed at her ears while her back was turned. I have super senses. How do you think I heard that bomb before it exploded? She asked rhetorically. He mentally smacked himself. He was really off his game today. Well, he had an excuse. She came back in the living room with many things, water bottles, 10 to be exact, a few blankets, pillows, a thermos filled with something unknown, a few protein bars. When did she buy those? A portable phone charger, all charged up, a few books, an ice pack, and a scalp massager. What kind of process was this? She set all the things on the coffee table and on the couch. She turned to him and patted right next to her, gesturing for him to sit down. All right, then. He sat next to her. He looked at the items she procured. He was about to ask, but she held up her hand. It's better if you don't ask, she stated with a nervous expression. He nodded anxiously. This is definitely not what he expected. She also grabbed some candles and placed them around the coffee table. She waved her hand, and at the same time, they all lit on fire. It wasn't green like the previous times. It was orange. Normal fire. She waved her hands again, and the lights turned off. They were now in dim candlelight. She inhaled big and allowed a deep breath. She reached behind his neck, but stopped. She looked to him with serious eyes. Izuku, you have to be absolutely serious when you want this off, because as soon as I take this off, I won't be able to put it back on. She asked, and everything you are feeling now is never going to be the same again. I know from talking with others that have gone through this before. She went on. He grabbed her wrists. He stared directly in her eyes. I'm sure, he declared. She nodded. He was ready. She placed her hands on the back of his necklace chain. Suddenly, markings were forming on Inko's face. Green markings, they were glowing like it was green fluorescent paint. There were 3 slightly curved lines horizontally under each eye and going up to the side of her eyes. They were smooth like art. Two curved lines on both the left and the right side of her face on her chin appeared. On her forehead, 4 lines coming down and curved 2 going on each side. They were ending above her eyes. And in between of the lines was a straight line that ended in a circle between her eyes just above her nose. Her body was radiating a green, smoky aura. Izuku gawked at his mother's new look. He did not expect this either. A new ringing sound was projected. It didn't hurt, but it was loud. He looked down, and his necklace was glowing, or more specifically, the symbols around the crystal. They were glowing red. The ringing got louder, and the chain around his neck was feeling loose now. Outside, he heard lightning, and from a look out the window, it was raining like crazy. There was not a cloud a few minutes ago. This was definitely because of what they were doing right now. He could feel the chain getting hot. It wasn't painful, but it was starting to get uncomfortable. After a few more minutes of the rising temperature and the volume of the ringing getting bigger, the raining outside now turned into a full-on storm. Cling! Just like that, it all stopped. The ringing was no more. The glowing on the necklace was no more. His mother's marking were now more and suddenly gone. The storm now, just a slight fall. Inko's aura now gone too. It disappeared into the air. Inko pulled her hands away, and in her grasp was the necklace. He reached up and felt his neck where it had been. He had never been without it on. It was weird not having it on. One thing was definitely not expected. He didn't feel anything. He didn't feel any different. If he closed his eyes, he wouldn't feel like anything has changed, and he wouldn't know that his necklace was off. Inko set the discarded necklace down on the table and stared at him, emotionless. Izuku looked all around him. He was trying to see if anything had changed, only that everything was normal. He turned back to his mom, who was still staring at him, emotionless. Mom. He didn't know what to say. Inko said nothing. She reached back behind the couch without taking his eyes off him and produced a big metal empty bucket. He was confused again. Why would he need that? He was about to say something when things turned for the worse. His eyes going wide and his sudden about face of health was quick. OCRP, he thought. He grabbed the bucket and hurled so much into it. So that's why she got the bucket. He was about to look back up at his mom, but he needed to puke again. When he finished, his head was still lowered and he was shaking. OCRP, he had to do it again. He hurled again. He understood why it was so big. Well, there goes his lunch. He was heaving now, and it was so awful. He thought he was done when his throat told him otherwise. And there goes his breakfast. Inko brought Izuku into her hold while his head was still buried into the bucket and his hands clutching the sides. She started to rub his back. He puked again. And there goes yesterday's dinner. Oh God, please tell me this is it. The universe laughed at him as he did it again. It was burning his throat, and some was coming out of his nose. Tears of pain were flowing freely from his pained eyes. Yeah, baby, she said while still stroking his back and holding him. You're in for a rough night. She winced as he hurled again and produced yesterday's breakfast. The next few days to Izuku were a blur. The points he can remember, though, could be described in one word. Hell. The first few hours, he was puking nonstop into a bucket that had to be dumped out again and again for a while. He was quite sure he saw BLD a few times. His entire body hurt all at once, and it was like he was throwing up his organs. His mother was there every single second of the way, holding him, petting his hair, and rubbing his back. She got him to drink a little bit of water. Izuku felt as soon as the liquid ran down his throat that it was literal heaven. And then the puking would start up again. He honestly didn't know how he was still throwing up. If his math is correct, and it usually was, he hurled about 4 times his body weight. To be fair, he was pretty light, but you get the idea. The neighbors came by banging on the door, demanding what all the noise was. Inko left Izuku on the couch as she answered the door. He didn't know what happened since he was preoccupied, but Inko had come back with a smile on her face and her eyes glowing a bit. He really hoped she didn't kill them, although he would really mind at this point. They were really mean, and he was going through a process of which was very painful. The next few hours were without the endless vomiting. It led to pain spasms and a headache that only be described as a literal aneurysm. Inko wrapped him up in 3 blankets, since he was also feeling ice cold. His eyes were also in pain, as even the smallest light was causing him pain. The news had said that the weekend was supposed to be sunny without a cloud in the sky. light was seeping into the window, and it was making his head explode. Inko quickly did something about it, and made the weather change to a very dark, cloudy rainfall the whole weekend instead. She has power over the weather. He thought at one moment, but didn't dwell on it since he was thankful for the now lack of light. The news had just said it was someone's quirk that was causing the change in the sky, so they didn't think much of it. Izuku could barely move an inch on the couch, as the smallest movement would feel like his bones are cracking like glass. He was so thankful his mom was there for him. He definitely would not have survived this without her. She was always getting him to drink a bit of water at a time, massaging the parts of him that felt like hell, getting him into more comfortable clothes to lie down in. At the moment, she was massaging his head with the scalp massager. He didn't know how this was possible, but he felt hot and cold at the same time. He was wrapped up in exceptionally soft blankets, and there was an ice pack placed at the top of his head. Inko monitored and took his temperature each hour. The thermometer had said he was over 150. Inko didn't worry of this and said, "It's normal for what you're going through right now." She reassured him. He wished he could fall asleep, but every time he would get close, a stabbing pain would course through his body. Inko fed him warm chicken soup every day, since it was the only thing he could keep down. The protein bars, he would nibble at them like he was a little mouse with cheese. Safe to say, Izuku's weekend was the absolute worst he has ever felt in his life. Then the point came where Izuku had gained a few hours of sleep. Deep, dreamless sleep. He didn't know what had happened while he was out, but from what his mom told him, she carried him to his bed where he would be more comfortable. She apparently was extraordinarily strong. He didn't pay too much attention to the next few hours, as they were pain-filled and nausea-induced. Today was the day that the process was over. Izuku blinked tiredly up at the ceiling of his room and felt the sweet softness of the sheets covering him. He wanted to close his eyes and go back to sleep. But one thing stopped him. He wasn't in pain anymore. He was just very tired. Usually, every minute of consciousness of the last few days were of some part of him in terrible pain. But now, not one part of him was even aching. He looked out the window to see that it was still very cloudy, and he could even hear rain hitting the window in peaceful taps. It may be weird to others, but to him he loved the rain. He loved the temperature, the smell, how fresh the air was. He loved every bit of it. So, waking up with no hint of pain while it was a rainy day was very relaxing. Instead of going back to sleep like he had wanted to, he got up and went to find his mother. He made it one step before not feeling his legs and fell on his bedroom floor. Izuku crashed on the floor with a yelp. He thought his legs were still just waking up. But no, he tried to move his legs, but nothing. Oh God, did he somehow damaged his leg sometime this weekend, and he didn't even know? Oh God, this was bad. This was really, really bad. MOM. He called out to his mother. Hopefully, she was in the apartment. He heard footsteps rushing from outside his room. His door burst open to reveal his mother in different clothes than he previously saw her in. How long was I out? Long enough to change, apparently. She had a worried look on her face. Inko knelt down to see what was wrong. "Mom, I can't feel my legs," he exclaimed. She didn't seem too shocked about this. She moved to help him up. "Here, hold on tight." Inko moved his arms to around her neck, and he was lifted up bridal style with ease. Izuku gawked. She moved out of her son's room and proceeded to the living room. "I still cannot believe how strong you are," he commented sheepishly. "Well, for one thing, you are very light. I'm quite sure you aren't even in the triple digits of weight. And second, I'm a kitsune," she explained. Izuku's sweat dropped at the true statement. He weighed himself last week, and he was 94 pounds. He had to eat more. It was very unhealthy. She placed her son sideways on the couch. Inko inspected his legs, feeling along his calves and his ankles. He didn't feel anything, not even a little tingle. After a few more minutes of inspection, she finished and looked back at him with a reassuring smile. "It's nothing, sweetie. Your nerves are still connecting, so it might take a few hours till you have your legs back." "Oh, well, that's a relief," he said, completely oblivious to what she just said. "Wait, what?" He realized. "Well, your nerves have to connect for your body to work. That's basic knowledge." She explained, completely passing off what he really meant with a joke. "No, I mean, why do my nerves need to connect? Aren't they already connected? Or am I missing something here? He was starting to panic. Inko raised her hands to calm him down. It's okay. It is totally normal for someone in your situation to go through this. Then what is happening to me? Why are my nerves not where they're supposed to be? Even after all the explanations he received from his mother about how they were magical fox beings, he was still lost on pretty much everything. She let out a sigh. This was the part that was always tedious. Well, you did puke out all of your bones and organs. Inko delicately explained why. Izuku paled. Did he just hear his mother correctly? He puked out his bones and organs. What? He could not form words right now. His brain could not respond to this. Wait, did he still have a brain? His mom did say he puked out all his bones and organs, so did he still have a brain? Okay, so I'm trying extremely hard to be calm right now and not scream like a banshee. So, can you please explain more before I can no longer hold it in? He asked his mother as gently as possible without losing his mind. Well, at the beginning of the transformation, when I took off the medallion, you grew up with human parts. When I took off the medallion, your body started to recognize that these weren't the right ones for your body, as you're now a full-on kitsune. So, your body took it upon itself to get rid of the parts that didn't fit anymore. She explained. So, my body didn't like the organs I had, and as a result, it made me throw them up? He questioned if he was interpreting this right. Inko nodded. Did you really think out of all you threw up that it was just food? She inquired. Well, he didn't think it was his innards. Wait, how is that even possible? Everything was liquid in the bucket. Or at least semi-liquid, he questioned further. Your body liquefies it, so it can make it easier, she explained. None of that was easy. Wait, what did he have in his body now? Mom, since I don't have any bones or anything in my body right now, how am I moving? He seriously hoped it wasn't gross. She raised an eyebrow. Well, bones and organs, she answered. Wait. What? But you just said that I threw them up and they didn't match my body anymore. He was confused again. Well, why yes, but you regrew them, she stated. I regrew them. You put a lot of emphasis on the key word. Yes, you can self-heal now. It'll speed up in a few days where it will be instant instead of slowly going about. Inko replied about her son's predicament. This stopped Izuku from his panic. We can heal ourselves. Izuku gaped. Doing a complete 180 from the panic he was in. He was now intrigued. Inko nodded her head. The only reason I had to heal you a few days ago was because you still had a human body, and your powers weren't activated yet. Now that they are, you won't have to wait an awfully long time to heal, nor do you have to worry about an infection or other medical complications. She smiled happily. Izuku perked up at the notion that he could now heal himself. That's amazing. How does it work? Is it our BLD that is self-healing, that it is accelerated to the point of where it can regrow organs? Or is it the mana you mentioned earlier that is supposedly all around us? And since you said it had feelings, then it must care for us. Wait, but that doesn't register with if we do have the ability, and the mana does have feeling S, it can also hate us too in that case. It could intentionally hurt us as well. So would it be the mana that is really what healing us, or I dash? His mumble storm was stopped by his mother's hand, claimed around his mouth. Izuku, honey, I know you just woke up, and you're very curious and all. But if you just ask me, then you can get an answer. Plus, you don't want to overexert yourself. You're still new to this. She removed her hand when she finished. Izuku was silent and waited for his mother to explain. All right, now number 1. It's not in our BLD. Number 2. It's not the mana. Number 3. That's just how our bodies function. One of our abilities is automatic healing. She explained while rolling up her sleeve. She held out her arm in front of him and brought out her other hand. She held one finger up. Her nail had changed color from beige to black in less than a second. It elongated about half an inch, and it was now pointed with a slight curve to it. Izuku gasped at this, and his eyes widened in surprise. She had a claw, an actual claw. She brought her claw down on her other arm and ran her claw along her arm. A laceration was forming a path on her arm now. MOM. Izuku yelped in concern and tried to reach out to her. But before he could register what was happening, Inko's arm started to heal itself. Both sides of the laceration that she had created had moved towards each other like magnet attraction. And the skin, as soon as I met the other side, it stitched itself together like time had rewound and just like that, her arm was healed. There was no BLD. There was no scar. There was nothing that could indicate that she had just slashed her arm. After a few seconds of staring at her arm, Izuku looked up to see his mother smiling wide. He grasped his mother's arm and inspected it. He turned it, felt it, and nothing was there. It was a miracle. He released her arm and was staring wide-eyed and slack-jawed at his mother. Even after all he has been through, she was still surprising him. So wait, what was that fire you did? The green fire. You used it to heal me and teleport us. But when you lit the candles, the fire was a normal color. So what was that? He asked, remembering the night in which his life was changed. Inko brought her hand forward again and held her palm up. The green fire had erupted in a small size the size of a golf ball. This right here, Izuku, is foxfire. Foxfire, he whispered and raised his hand near it. She raised it up higher. Izuku, this is our most powerful ability, she declared with absolute pride dripping in her voice. The fire was moving and changing now. It was taking a form of an object, a flower, more specifically a rose. The tips of the rose had the end of the flame, and it was flowing like it was in the wind. The foxfire is something only we can control. The fire changed shapes again and took the form of a big snowflake. It was rotating like it would a car wheel. No one else can make it, and no one can put it out. Only we can control it. Again, it changed. This time it took the shape of a musical note. This fire only obeys us. It doesn't even obey the laws of physics. She held out to him. Go ahead, touch it, she offered. Izuku didn't want to sense it was fire, and in his mind, fire has always been very painful. He had Kaken to thank for that, but this was his mother, and this was not ordinary fire. With a lot of courage, he reached out and put his hand in the musical fire note. He waited for a hot pain that would engulf his hand. It never came. Instead, it was a nice cold feeling. It wasn't icy cold. It was just like a relieving cold, and started to warm up to a nice toasty, but not enough for it to be painful. Then out of nowhere, where there was not a temperature at all, it was like he was just grasping air. The fire had disappeared. He looked up at Inko. She brought her hand back in her lap. Foxfire is unique to each Kitsune. We each have our own. That was mine. And soon, once your powers progress a bit more, you will develop your own. And once you get your fire, you will also get your markings. My markings. Izuku curved his head. You mean those things that appeared on your face when you were taking off the necklace? Inko did not reply. Instead, her eyes glowed green, and the marks from a few nights before had appeared on her face. Once a Kitsune's powers hit a certain point, then these will appear. These symbolize that you are one of us. Her markings disappeared. Are my markings going to look like yours? Izuku wondered what he would look like. Inko wondered for a bit. She cupped her chin. Would he? To be honest, Izuku, I don't know. She knew sometimes the kids of Kitsunes would inherit their parents' markings. And sometimes they can be completely different. There were a few occasions where they would get a mix of the parents, but that was exceedingly rare. We're just going to have to wait and see, sweetie. Inko stated. Well, when can I use my powers? I mean, since I'm now a Kitsune and the medallion is off, how can I use them? Back then, before he was declared quirkless, he was thinking of all the quirks he could have had. He thought he could have something like his dad fire breath, or his mother's attraction of small objects. He thought that maybe he could get something similar to Kaken's explosion quirk. Before, when they were still friends, they had declared that they would be a hero duo, the greatest in the world. After he was declared quirkless, Kaken had said that even if he tried extremely hard, that he would rather die than work with a quirkless Deku. That night, he had cried so much. He was his best friend, the brother he wished he had. He loved him so much. But what would happen now? He apparently was more powerful than a person with a quirk. So would that mean he could be a hero? Or would he have to hide like his species did from society? Bigger question, if Kaken found out what he was, would he want to be friends again? He was about to ask his mom if he could tell Kaken. But then he looked at his phone that was still on the coffee table after leaving it there and never moving it. The screen read Monday, 12:49. Yeah, Izuku screamed. I've got to get to school. He tried to run to his room so he could get his uniform on. He apparently forgot that he was temporarily disabled. He fell face down on the wooden floors. He groaned in pain. He quickly tried to crawl to his room. He was stopped when he was picked up. He looked behind, ready to tell his mother to let go. He did not, since she was still sitting on the couch with her hand held out and pointing towards him. He was floating in the air. Her face was blank. "And just where do you think you were going?" she demanded at her floating son. "Mom, I have to get to school. Today's a school day, and I'm seriously late." He was moving his arms in a freestyle movement like he was swimming. That was obviously a futile attempt. She wasn't letting him go anywhere. "You're not going to school. You can't even walk." She started floating him back to the couch. "Besides, even if you could walk, you are still in a fragile state. If you're not careful, you could literally set the entire school on fire." She set him back down to where he previously was. "What?" He gasped at the notion of arson. "But wait. I thought you said that it would be a while till my powers would start developing." "Yes, I said that. But your emotions could set off your powers right then and there." She stated the importance of him not attending school for a while. "You remember how I was telling you the story of us?" she asked. Izuku nodded. "Well, our emotions can set off our powers even when we don't want them to. For instance," she gestured to the potted dahlia on the windowsill. She levitated it forward and into her hand. "If you're having happy feelings, then this flower will grow and spread even more." She opened her hand, and the flower grew in size a foot taller. "But if you're having unhappy feelings, then the flower will die." She closed her hand. The dahlia started to lose its color and wither like it was getting older. It was now a sad, dead plant. She waved her hand, and the dahlia grew back to its normal state. Inko set it down on the coffee table. "So, you understand now why you can't go to school. And that's just with plants. It can sometimes be more devastating." She had a grim expression. "So, I can never go to school again?" He panicked. His heartbeat was through the roof. He could kill people if he doesn't keep his emotions in check. "You can still go to school, but it's just right now that your powers are a bit unstable. Right now, the only thing keeping your powers from going on a rampage is me. For only a few days you have to stay near me, so I can keep it under control. After that, it will be okay to go to school and leave my side. I mean, your emotions will still send your powers in a fritz, but then it won't be as catastrophic. The reason why your powers are so powerful now is that you just reawakened into a kitsune." Inko claimed her son. He looked around the room, searching for anything that might be out of the ordinary. "But nothing is happening right now. That's because I'm stopping the things from happening. Honestly, Izuku, I didn't expect you to be this powerful upon your awakening. I had to drain everyone in the building of their energy to keep this under control." She pointed out with a smile. She was proud of her little fox. "Mom, I don't think you should be smiling at the threat of I could cause a disaster." Izuku's sweat dropped. She was kind of proud of that as well. Didn't say it, though. "Anyway, you're not going to school for a few days. I already called Aldera to tell them that you would be home due to a cold. They seemed happy about that, saying, 'Keep him home as long as you want.'" "The assholes." Inko grunted. She knew the true words behind the call. They didn't want a quirkless kid anywhere near their school. "Jackasses." "But Mom, that's not the point. I have a lot of stuff to do in school, and every day a lot of homework is given. And I'll miss lessons. Not to mention, this is another reason for them to get rid of me, since they could say I never show up to class. They would say to the superintendent that I missed a few days of class, and they would bring up that I'm quirkless, so did sh—" He didn't get to finish as his mother's hand was placed on his mouth. "Sweetie, listen to me now." She took her hand away from his mouth and placed both hands on his shoulders. "I have been a horrible parent and not doing everything in my power to keep you safe. That is not happening anymore. I will take care of everything. You just stay here and rest. Do not worry about that school. And if those assholes think they could bully my little fox, now that I'm no longer playing human, then they better pray to whatever god they worship, because I will be coming for them." Inko declared that she isn't going to let any more CRP happen to her little fox. Izuku wanted to argue, but he held his tongue and nodded. He had faith in his mom, even without knowing she was a 5,000-year-old fox. She removed her hands and sat up. "Now, I want you to rest a bit more. Maybe watch some TV, but I don't want you overexerting yourself." She went into the kitchen area. "Besides, I have a surprise for you tonight," she sang with glee. He raised his head. "What is it?" he asked, unsure. She waved her finger at him. "Nuh-uh. It's a surprise, and I know for a fact that you're going to love it. But for right now, try to rest, baby." She went back to what she was doing. He bowed his head and stretched out on the couch as to try a nap. Well, okay. He lied his head down, and as soon as his head met the pillow, he passed out. Izuku had never taken a nap for more than 2 hours before in his life. It was like his body would be set on a timer for him to wake up if it was just a nap. When he would actually go to sleep for the night, it was entirely different. He was an incredibly light sleeper. When the apartment downstairs made a noise, then he would wake up. When the TV in the other room was turned on, even if it was on the lowest volume, he would wake up. So when Izuku had found out he had been so tired that he slept for 7 hours, he had to have been dreaming. But apparently, not, since that is what his phone is displaying. Izuku had just woken up. The lights in the living room were off. However, the lights from the kitchen were on, so he could see clearly. He could hear his mother humming to herself in the kitchen. There was also noise of cutlery clinking together. He could also smell his favorite dish being cooked up. Kitsune was his favorite, and it had always cheered him up on days he was feeling sad. He reached to the side to see what the time was, since he apparently slept in till dark. His heart dropped when the screen displayed 8:14. He had slept 7 hours. "Oh God, you've got to be kidding me." He faltered. Well, nothing you can do about it now, he thought. He laid his phone back on the coffee table. He lied back down on the couch and stared at the ceiling. Well, better get up, he thought. He removed the blanket that was placed over him, by his mom, no doubt. He looked at his legs. Are they working now? He hoped they were. He tried to wiggle his toes. To his surprise, it actually worked. He was better now. He moved his legs over to the floor and sat up with a yawn. "DMN, how is he still tired?" He turned to the kitchen, and he almost screamed to the sight that greeted. He gasped at the mountains of deep-fried pork strips in multiple pans that were all over the kitchen counter. He almost lost it when also saw multiple big bowls of rice. Oh my God, there were so many eggs just in one pile. Was this literal heaven? Because if so, then Izuku would be perfectly happy staying here. Were they having company? Because even if he wanted, he couldn't eat all of this by himself. Wait. They hadn't have anyone over for dinner since the Bakugos. They haven't come in so long. Ever since Kakin got his quirk, they had been eating alone, just mother and son. They were the only ones that would be over for dinner, so who was all of this food for? He was brought back to the world when he felt his mother lift his chin and mouth closed. "Dinner's ready, sweetie," she greeted. She turned back and got herself a plate to serve herself. His chin felt wet. Was he drooling? He wiped his chin. It was indeed wet. Oh God, nasty. He couldn't help it. The wonderland of his favorite food was just so appealing. He went to go sit himself down, since there was already a bowl on his placemat. His mother sat down across from him, smiling. Mom, I don't want to be rude, but, why did you cook this much food?" He questioned meekly. "Don't get me wrong, this is awesome, but we can eat this all on our own." He shook his hands frantically. His mother looked confused. "Well, you've barely eaten anything the last few days, so I would assume you were hungry. Also, Kitsune is your favorite, and we are celebrating." She smiled with glee. "Yeah, he barely ate, but he wasn't this hungry. I mean, yeah, but I'm not this hungry. Mom, we could feed my entire school alone with all this." He gestured to the enormous amounts of food. "Izuku, even if your entire school was starving and on the brink of death, I still would not even give them half of this." She giggled. After what that school has put her little fox through, they will be luck if she doesn't kill them. "Mom, that's not the point. Besides, how much did all of this cost? Not cheap, I'm guessing." He fumed. "Well, it would have been expensive if I had paid for it." She took a bite out of her bowl. "What? Wait, did his mother steal all of this?" "Wait, how could she?" She said she couldn't leave his side for a while, or I could set fire to the whole building. "Mom, did why you steal all of this?" He stuttered. "Well, I'm not the one who stole it. She put a lot of white to I mean, I compelled someone to go buy it. I mean, it wasn't stolen. It just wasn't paid for by me. And plus, I couldn't leave you. How was I supposed to go get you food?" She asked rhetorically. "But I don't need this much," he exclaimed, gesturing again to the mountain of food. "Wait, who did you compel?" He questioned his mother, who was now half finished with her bowl. "I doubt you remember, but when you were still in the process, the neighbors came over demanding to keep it down. I told them that you were very sick, and they were very rude about it. So in return for their unpleasantness, I compelled them to go buy all the ingredients at the store. Then when they got us everything, I erased their memories and compelled them again to ignore the noise. She took another bite, acting like what she just said was normal. He waved his hands. Wait. That you just compelled them, and they did what you told them to do. Well, yeah. She took a sip of water. Compulsion is different than possession. Possession is when we have to drive. Compulsion is when you give them a command and they carry it out or themselves. She explained. Again, it was like this was all normal to her. Well, it was. Just not to Izuku. He had his mouth wide open in shock and bewilderment. He was about to respond when his mother beat him to it. Izuku, you need to eat. It's going to get cold. She told him, completely leaving the compulsion subject. But Mom, I can't eat all this. He pouted. She giggled again. Izuku, I predict that you will finish all of this within 20 minutes. H-U-H, he exclaimed. Mom, I can't even eat half of this dish right here in 20 minutes. He pointed at the plate in front of him. He hated to admit it, but he was a slow eater. She raised her hand. Sweetie, just trust me and have a bite. She said softly. He wanted to argue. He then felt his stomach rumbling. Oh, maybe he would give it a try. It's his favorite anyway. He grabbed his chopsticks and clamped one of the strips of pork. Inko discreetly took out her phone to record. This was going to be very entertaining, she thought. He bit down on the fried pork, and his whole world came to a standstill. Holy SHD was his thought. He placed the entire thing in his mouth. Oh my God, it was so good. The pork was so juicy and warm. It was unbelievably amazing. Had she ever made it this good before? Holy freaking CRP. This was so good. All the flavors that were in the dish was on hyperdrive. The pork was so rich he could die with this in his mouth, and he would be happy. He grabbed another piece and chewed as all the flavors flooded his system. This was the best katsudan he has ever tasted. He finished the pork, and now came the eggs and the rice. Those were amazing. Oh my God, this was joy. The rice was so rich in taste, as well he could taste every singed grain as if it were its own dish. He lifted the bowl up to his chin to pour everything down the hatch. Holy CRP. I want another. He held out his bowl to ask for some more. His mother was one step ahead of him as she had another bowl waiting. He snatched that up. He began to destroy it. Every single crumb was not to be spared. He grabbed every last piece of his food. He was acting like a wild animal. He forgot his table manners, and he ate like a heathen. He didn't care. This was the best meal he has ever had, and he was going to eat every last bite of it. Another. He dug in as quickly as can be. Another. He lifted it to his mouth and poured all the contents in his throat. Another. Screw manners. Another. And then another. And then another. He lost count of how many times he had asked for another. He just wanted more. He held his bowl out again. His world quickly fell apart as his mother shook her head with a smile on her face. 21 minutes and 42 seconds. I was close. Wait, what? What was she talking about? Wait, where's all of TH food that was just there? True to Izuku's words, the pans once overflowing with fried pork was now empty. The bowls of rice were now gone. Even the eggs that had previously been there were no more. Where were they? He hadn't had that much. Had he? He looked at his mom for an answer. She was smiling. I told you. Bu ho wa dash. He is having a lot of trouble forming words now. How could he possibly eat so much? He was definitely sure he ate about 12 times his body mass. He didn't even feel uncomfortable. He barely ate in the past few days, and now he just ate for the next few months. Honey, before your mind spirals any more out of control, I want to reiterate that Kitsune bodies are way more different than humans. You are no longer human. You are a Kitsune. Inko stated, I really have to get to know what the difference is between a human body and a Kitsune body. Izuku thought, so I can eat, and I would never get full or get a stomach ache. Izuku wondered out loud. He drank some water. You can eat as much as you want and not get sick, or you cannot eat at all. She sat up and took both bowls to the sink. Either way, you won't get sick. Plus, you never have to use the bathroom. You don't produce waste. Okay, that part was kind of weird. He doesn't poop. Lovely. Izuku shuddered. Wait, if we don't need to use the bathroom, then where does it go? He really hoped this wasn't gross. It gets added to your energy. It's not a lot, but it's some. She began to wash the dishes. She was so glad she got that on video. She was still his mother, and so it is said that she will capture cute moments of her son's now eternal life. "Hey, Mom, can I ask you a question?" he asked. "You just did." She grinned. Izuku frowned. "Really?" Inko sighed. "What's on your mind?" "What wasn't on my mind?" In the span of a few days, his life got hijacked and twisted. A week ago, he was a quirkless middle school human teenager capable of scaring people with his muttering. Now he was an ancient mythical kitsune capable of multiple disasters, and also eating and never getting full. What isn't on his mind? Then he thought back to when he read about kitsunes in school. It was a class on Japanese mythology. They had skimmed kitsunes, but one thing stood out to him that the entire lore surrounded. "Mom, do you have tails?" She stopped what she was doing, and, in a flash, she sat across from Izuku. She moved so fast. She has super speed. I barely saw a blur. Izuku thought. He yelped as she appeared in front of him. She took a deep breath. "Yes, Izuku. I have tails. I have all 9. She didn't have a smile on her face this time. What was wrong? "Can I see them?" he carefully asked. Something was wrong. She grimaced. "Maybe some other time, sweetie." She was about to get up when Izuku caught her hand. "Mom, I'm here," he stated. "Is something wrong?" He stared at her for a second before she sat back down. She looked at her hand that was joined with his. "Did you lose them or something?" He started asking as to why she won't show him her tails. She shook her head. "Are they small?" he asked again. She shook her head again. "They were actually humongous." "Are they ugly?" He really hoped it wasn't that. She looked up and had an annoyed expression. "Really? Sorry, I didn't mean that." He waved his free hand wildly, as to calm her. Inko placed her hand on his other to calm him. "Izuku, it's none of those. The real reason was a bit weird." She let out a big sigh. "The reason I won't show you my tails is because I haven't brought them out in a long time." Inko revealed her embarrassing reason why. The few seconds of silence were killer to the mother, but they were broken by the laughs of her son. "Ha ha." He laughed like it was some funny joke. "That's the reason why. You made it sound like it would kill someone." He laughed again. "It's not funny. It's just very personal," she blushed. He laughed a bit more. He wiped a tear out of his eye. "Mom, that's not a bad reason. I mean, they're still there, right?" "Well, yes, they're still there, but it's just I haven't brought them out for a very long time." She covered her face with her hands. Oh God, this was embarrassing. To have her son laugh at her for such a stupid reason. I mean, it couldn't have been that long now, has it? The laughing now completely gone. "Eh?" She covered her mouth and mumbled something. He did not get that. "Come again." He held his ear out. "Since you were born." She yelled so loud that she made Izuku fall over. He got up and rubbed his head. 13 years, he exclaimed. She nodded. When he was born, she was forced to bring out her tails. She had a high pain tolerance, but having a kid come out of her, that was hell. She blushed harder again, her face redder than BLD. This was so embarrassing. She was one of the most powerful kitsunes alive, and yet she was afraid to bring out her tails. Well, Mom, that's nothing to be ashamed about. Izuku smiled at his stressed-out mother. So you haven't shown your tails for a very long time. What's wrong with that? He wondered if there was something really wrong with that, but he hoped not. Well, it's not really as easy as you think. When I decided to live the life as a human, I hid my tails. I didn't bring them out for anything. I occasionally use my powers, but in small amounts. The last 4 hours is the most I've used them than in the last 13 years. She explained. Yikes, he thought. Song. Anguish of the quirkless. She bowed her head in shame. But my tails are a part of me, and not once did I ever took them out. Not even for a second. My mom has always told me to be proud of every single inch of our forms. For we are just as appealing on the inside as we are the outside. She remembered when she showed her tails to many humans that they would pass out over the overwhelming beauty of them. As my life over the thousands of years, I was so happy with my tails that I would bathe them in the moonlight. They would sparkle and flourish. But as I took the life as a human, I needed a little quirk. So I just used a bit of my powers just to blend in. I never needed my tails for any reason at all, so I never used them for so long. She remembered times where she would stand in the mirror and just think about taking them out for hours. Izuku listened to her story and felt the pain in her voice. She was incredibly sad about this. She must have loved her tails. When I hid my tails away, it was like I was saying they were ugly and a shame. She shed a tear. They were a part of me, and I refused to use them or even look at them. And I felt like I was abandoning who I really was. Izuku felt his mother's pain. It was terrible. In the past, whenever his mother would cry, he would always do anything to cheer her up. He would go to the greenhouse upstairs and grab a peeling flower. He would spend a long time in his room drawing a picture with all his skill for her. Sometimes he would just hug her. That always cheered her up. Izuku stood up from the table and hugged his mother tightly. She was shocked at first, but then she returned it with her arms around his waist. He really didn't know how much his mother hated living like a human, but he did know from just the pain in her voice how much hated not bringing out her tails. After a few minutes of silence from the mother and son, the son spoke up. He leveled his face with his mother's and was now close with her. Mom, it doesn't matter if you hid away tails or if you had them out this entire time. You are a appealing, smart, caring, amazing woman to me, and you always will be, he declared to his mother. He smiled the biggest smile he could, and true to his words, he thought his mother was the best out there. She would always be the best no matter what. Nothing would ever change his mind. Inko smiled too after a few seconds and wiped her eyes. She brought her son in a tight hug, his head on her shoulder as she caressed his hair. How is she so lucky to have this amazing son? After a few minutes of hugging, they released each other. They grinned. So can I see them? He hoped he wasn't pushing it. Inko smiled sadly at him. Maybe some other time. Preferably when I start helping you control your powers. She shook her head. Okay then. He was a bit sad he couldn't see his mother's tails. Oh, well, he would get to see them eventually. He turned back to her. Oh, Mom, do I have tails? He was hoping he did. That would be very cool. She nodded. Well, you have a tail, she stated. He tilted his head in confusion. What do you mean a tail? Aren't kitsunes supposed to have 9 tails? That was one of the things that I learned in class. Well, then that class did not teach you everything. And even so, what little we give humans is only half accurate. She seemed a bit annoyed that their school unknowingly skimmed through their heritage and half-assed taught her little fox. The number of tails varied on 3 things. She held up a fist. Power, control, experience. She held a finger up for each one. Right now you only have one because you just reawakened. The more control and experience you get, the more tails you will grow. You don't have to worry about power for a while because, like I said before, without me to hold you back, you will no doubt turn this building and everyone in it to ash. And that's only the first second. Give you 5 minutes, and you could level the entire city. Not even the heroes could stop you. She warned of his cosmic amount of power. His sweat dropped and paled at the same time. He was that dangerous. But with time and training, you will be able to control them however you want, she beamed. He better learn fast then, because he did not want to kill the entire city. If he could level the entire city within 5 minutes, what could he do in an hour? He didn't want to find out. He got an idea. Hey, since you won't bring your tails out, could I? He wanted to see what a kitsune tail would look, especially his. She quickly panicked and held a nervous smile. Maybe not yet. Your other powers I can handle. However, if you bring out your tail, there is a good chance you could melt someone's face or make their brain explode. You have got to be kidding me. Is there anything I can within the next few days that doesn't have the danger of killing anyone? He exclaimed. She held her arms up in defense. It's only for a few days, sweetie. Then you're free, she assured him. Well, okay. He pouted and slouched. This ought to be fun. But to be honest, he was tired again. I'm going to go lie down again. He started to walk back to his room. Let me know if you need anything. She called out to him. Oh, wait. He raced back to the kitchen. Hey, Mom, what did you do differently with the Katsudon this time? It was really good. I couldn't get enough of it. He absolutely loved dinner tonight. Oh, I didn't do anything different, sweetie. Your sense of taste is now enhanced, and soon your other senses will follow along. Then as you learn to control your powers, your senses will get more and more powerful too. This was literally only a taste of what your senses can do, and that is just Katsudon. I can't wait to see you try so many other things. She boasted with glee. Seriously, everything was just going to get better from here on out. He wanted to try so many things now. Oh man, what would candy taste like? What would coffee taste like? What would everything taste like? Oh man, he wanted to try everything out there. He let out a big yawn. But first he wanted to try Dreamland again. He went to his room and crashed face first on his bed. A few days later, Inko was walking on the sidewalk that lead to Aldera Middle School. Izuku's powers had stabilized enough for them to be apart and not cause a disaster. She still wanted him home just for one more day. The last few days he spent sleeping as he barely had enough energy to be awake for about half an hour. Today he was better, but she wanted him to sleep a bit more just so he could feel a little better. Also not be aware that she was currently going to his school and demand that he be treated equally like all the other kids. She entered the gates of Aldera. There was not a kid in sight. They must be in class by now. She could hear several heartbeats in the school, some all together and some scattered all around. Well, now or never, she thought. She entered the school. The security office is right next to the entrance. She glanced inside. Are you kidding me? The guard was asleep. He was sitting in his chair tilted back and snoring loudly. Inko had an annoyed expression. Humans are unbelievable. She proceeded to the main office area. There wasn't anyone in there other than the secretary. She wore a violet blouse and red glasses. She was typing something on her computer and looked to be real busy. Let's hope this all goes smoothly. She walked up to the desk. The secretary did not look up. She stood there hoping to get her attention. After no movement from her, Inko made herself known. Excuse me. The secretary finally looked up. Oh, hello, sorry, I didn't see you there. She cleared her throat. How can I help you? She asked. I'm here to talk with Principal Briarwood. She stated in the calmest tone she could muster. She was already annoyed just by being in this filthy, bigoted place. Who are you and the reason of your appointment? The secretary asked with full intent to help. Inko Midoriya. I'm the parent of Izuku Midoriya. I'm here to see the principal for the mistreatment of my son. Inko stated again, knowing full well that the secretary would do a full 180 turn on the attitude. The secretary looked up in shock as the names came up. She said it with clear dislike. She must have known Izuku. Excuse me. Inko questioned the tone of the secretary. It's just that Mr. Midoriya has been in the office quite a lot in the time he's been here. He's quite the troublemaker. The beach lied through her teeth. My Izuku is not a bad kid. You must have your knowledge wrong. She kept her tone very calm. It was proving to be quite a challenge. Ms. Midoriya, your son has been here several times due to being interruptive in class, not doing well in class as other students, slacking off while class is in session. I can name many more if you'd like. The beach was challenging her. Inko knew that each and every one of those things she listed were false. Izuku was a quiet kid. He loved school, and he was certainly the smartest kid in his class. And that wasn't just a parent thing. He was the smartest in his class. They would say Bakuga was, but she knew for a fact that that was just bigot CRP writing the grades themselves. Those claims you have are false and extremely out of line. Gone was the nice, timid parent. Taking its place was a confident, angry parent that was still holding back. They're not claims. They're simply facts. She said as if she weren't insulting the child of a parent who was standing before. I'm sorry. You talk as if you're in a position to be ruling out individuals such as kids that have done no wrong. Now, I'm not here to talk to you. I'm here to have a civil discussion with the principal of this not-so-fine establishment. Not some clearly bigoted receptionist whose fashion sense is clearly out of proportion. Inko was now fed up with this speech. If this was how this person was to her little fox, then how was she to other children who were labeled as quirkless? Mr. Briarwood is busy at the moment. Now leave. She more demanded than asked. From the process you were going through before I introduced myself, it seemed as if he didn't have an appointment. Also, there is no one here. Inko gestured to the empty office. Mr. Briarwood is a very busy man. He doesn't have time for unnecessary problems like your son. Now please leave, or I will call security. She threatened that idiot sleeping in his office. She cannot be serious. Even if she were human, Inko would not be beaten by such a putz. Tougher individuals have fallen by her hand before, and she wasn't even using her powers at the time. I think you might want to check the state of your security. He looked so sleep-deprived. It's amazing how he could protect any child at all with how much he works. Inko said sarcastically. Fine then. The secretary snapped. Then I'll just have to call the police. She picked up the phone and her finger hovered over the buttons. Last chance, leave or get arrested. I'm happy either way. She threatened. Inko really didn't want to get the police involved. She was still getting used to using her powers again, but she didn't know how she felt about dragging the police in this. It would make quite a scene. She didn't want to reveal herself. She was still a kitsune, and her son was one now also. It could put him in danger, and he doesn't even know how to control his powers. Inko turned away from the desk and began to walk away. Another time, she will not give up, and you better hurry. I hear the McDonald's around the corner is getting their lunch rush soon. Don't want to be late now, do we? She insulted Inko's weight. This made Inko halt in her tracks. Beach should have just kept her mouth shut. She was almost safe. Yep, Beach was going to die. Inko turned back. Excuse me, she called out. I mean, it's bad enough you have a quirkless delinquent as a son, but you also have that disgusting body. I recommend joining a gym. She insulted further. This time she insulted both her and her son. God, you should really save this woman now, for she is looking at a world of pain. Inko smiled wickedly and made her way back to the desk. So police it is then, the Beach challenged. I have a better idea. She grinned. Inko looked the secretary directly on the eyes. You're going to let me see the principal. You're going to let me pass with no hesitation or complications at all. The secretary froze. A second passed. She gained a smile. Mr. Briarwood can see you now. He's not busy at all. She had gone back on what she said, saying he was busy. Down the hall last door, to your left. She pointed to the hallway to Inko's left. It was like the entire conversation from before had never happened. Thank you so much, you're such a big help. Inko mocked her. She looked in her eyes again. If you ever treat a kid or any other individual who is labeled as quirkless with cruelty, you're going to take a push pin and place them inside your skin. Also, if you ever insult or disrespect my son ever again, you're going to staple your tongue until you can no longer talk. Inko was about to head off to the principal's office, but remembered one crucial detail. Change your style of color. Purple is for royalty, not middle management. And I would know. I have been with royalty before. Inko proceeded to the principal. It's been a while since Inko had used compulsion on someone for other things than a few chores. She used it on the neighbors when they were disturbing her little fox's process. She sent them out to get food items for when Izuku was hungry. She made them pay for it. It made her angry when they were complaining about her son. Serves them right. The last time she had compelled someone to do something like that was when a drunken idiot was harassing her and several other patrons at a restaurant. The idiot was being obnoxious and very handsy with the waitresses. She read the BSDRDS mind. And when she found out that he was going to do some very harmful things to someone if they didn't agree to go out with him, she was furious. That was one of the things Inko has never tolerated before. Whenever she was in that kind of situation, she always stopped what she was doing and either killed them or seriously maimed them. And she may or may not have drove a few 100 people insane for having committed those kinds of acts. Fair to say, the drunken BSDRD had left the restaurant with $1,000 missing from his bank account and a bloody stub for a hand. The news said that the man had gotten so drunk that he paid for all of the diner's bills, and then took a knife to cut off all of his fingers. The only thing Inko regrets from that day is not making him pay more for tips. That was the last time Inko had compelled someone for things other than chores. She had felt great doing something right in a not-so-pleasant way. The last door to the left, the secretary said. All right, here we go. Inko raised her hand to knock, but then she assumed that the simple gesture was not necessary for this kind of situation, mostly due to the principal disrespect of kids who have been labeled as quirkless. She opened the door, and the sight that greeted her was unbelievable. The principal was laid back in his chair with his legs perched on his desk, and, just like the security guard, he was snoring loudly. You are managing a school. Why the hell are you sleeping? She thought with disbelief. How is this school still running? Was the real question. The lazy security, the obnoxious secretaries, the abusive and neglectful teachers, and now the lazy principal. She had seen brothels with better standards before. Inko will not specify what her involvement in the BRTHL was. She closed the door and sat down in one of the chairs in front of the desk. How did she not wake him up? She wasn't being very quiet. She thought about interrupting his dreams with a nightmare, but thought against it. Another time, She cleared her throat to wake him up. Nothing. She tried again. Loudly this time. Still nothing. My patience is already running low. She slammed her hand on the desk. That did the trick. Mr. Briarwood yelped and fell out of his office chair with an audible thud. Skipped our morning coffee, now did we? Inko mocked the fallen principal with a pleasant voice. She did not regret it. Mr. Briarwood got up and glared at the snarky woman, ready to yell at her. However, he remembered he was still working. My apologies. I did not get a lot of sleep last night. Must have just dozed off a while ago. He sat back down and faced Inko. Liar. She thought. She read his mind. You've been sleeping since you got here. And this isn't a one-time thing. Jesus Christ, you but. She fumed. This isn't why she was here. She was here to stop the abuse of her son. Hello, Mr. Briarwood. I'm Inko Midoriya. My son Izuku Midoriya is a student here, and I wanted to discuss with you certain things that have been taking place, and certain discriminatory actions that have been used against my son. Inko stated politely. She could still do this as calmly as possible. Let me bring up your son's file real quick. He dove into his laptop that was sitting on the side. Why bring it up? Everything in there is a goddamn lie. She thought. After a few minutes of keys being pressed on the laptop, Izuku's file was now displayed. He's one of those, Mr. Briarwood stated with disgust. Inko knew what he meant. She just had to ask. One of what? Delinquents, I mean. MS Midoriya. You see, your son had been quite a pest ever since he's been here. He responded. Did this sad excuse of a human really just call her son a pest? She really did not want to kill this man, as it would be getting the police involved. Stay calm, Inko. Don't do something that will cause a fuss. And what kind of things would that my son has done to label him as a pest? She spat the word. Well, MS Midoriya. He has been causing a lot of trouble with the other students, such as he has been distracting them and making claims that they would bully him. I have talked with their homeroom teachers myself, and I have spoken with the students. They all say that they have not done a single harmful act towards Midoriya. In fact, they have said that they always treat him with kindness and respect. The principal stated, that was an absolute lie. First off, she would see her son trying to cover up the bruises and the burns he would get from the day. Second off, she read his mind. He was thinking about how he talked with the teacher, but never the students. And when he talked with the teacher, he had said that the little SHD deserved it. They both agreed, along with a remarkably interesting conversation of how the other kids were bullying her baby. And he was telling them it was pleasant to watch. You absolute piece of SHD. She thought. Suddenly, murder didn't seem like such a bad idea. Is that so? She challenged the principal. It is. Also, in the last few days, your son has been absent. I'm tempted to get the school board involved to talk about Izuku's future at this school. The principal challenged. Huh. Izuku was right. These assholes would use anything to get him out of here. She thought. Izuku has been sick the last few days. He's been bedridden. He can barely stand up for about half an hour. And I would assume you would be more concerned about his well-being and your students' well-being since you would rather have him come here and infect everyone else. She lied about Izuku being contagious, but hey, the lie was good to win this conversation. My students' health is different than their education. The other students do not need to worry about a few missed days since they have tremendous grades. Your son I am more concerned about since he is not doing so well in class at all that he can't afford to miss a few days. The BSDRD lied. Inko read his mind again. The only good grades in that class are Izuku and Katsuki. Everyone else, and there was CRP. The other students were idiots compared to those two. This but was full of SHD. He didn't give a DMN about her son at all. MS Midoriya, your son, is a special case. Your son is a very troubled individual. I have talked with several of his teachers before for a monthly update on the other students. Your son has not really applied himself to the teachings we give him. He doesn't even turn his work in. Another lie. She read his mind once again. The teachers would always throw away his completed work and mark it as a 0. I knew it was bad, but this is inconceivable. That's it. She was done with this school. If the police got involved then, so be it. She was going to fix this. Nothing was going to stop her. Outside the building, under the windowsill of the office, was a small flower bed. They were beautifully taken care of and have bloomed to full height. They had burst into flames. The fire had engulfed them, and after a few seconds they were no more than ash. Inko was angry. Inko had leaned in closer towards the principal. "Enough of this bullshit," she calmly said. "Excuse me, you watch your too." You didn't get to finish. "Enough with all the lies about my son. Enough with all the harassment. You're going to get rid of all of the lies you have on record about my son. And not only my son, but everyone else you have lied about. You will never lie to your superiors again about any of the students. Tell the truth about all of them. On record, tell the truth about them. And show some dignity in your work. After I am done here, find some employees who don't discriminate the students based on their backroad or quirk status. And find some teachers who are competent enough to run this school, yourself included." He was now frozen from being compelled. He went to his laptop and began typing. Inko grinned at how easy that was. Why didn't she just do that when she came in? After a few minutes, principal turned back to Inko. "Your son's file has been fixed. No longer will any lies or dishonesty come to the students." "Fantastic." Inko beamed. She sat up to go take care of other business. But before that, she needed something else. She turned back to him. "Print out a list of all the teachers my son has. And once I am gone, don't remember that I was here. Also, you will not fall asleep again while on the job. And once a week, when you get home from work, you will pour boiling water over your pages 1 week for every time you have lied about a student. Revenge is so sweet." He printed a list of all Izuku's teachers. She looked it over. 5 teachers. That's all that's needed. Inko folded up the piece of paper and placed it in her back pocket. She walked out. Just before she closed the door, she peeked her head back in. "And remember, boiling." She shut the door. Inko left the office area, barely giving the receptionist a glance. Inko had work to do. She entered the student halls. They were empty. They were still in class. Oh well, the kids could use a little scare. She looked around the hallway to see if there were any person roaming around. No one, and no security cameras either. Seriously, how is this school still even open? Inko took a deep breath. She vanished. Between the living world and the afterlife, there's a sort of limbo. It is called the veil. The veil also exists in the human world. However, it was beyond those of the living. It was like a separate plane. It was a world with the living, but it was separate. Together, but separate. How poetic. The veil exists for souls of those who don't want to move on yet, or are just simply afraid. After this place is the afterlife. All the religions out there, they were all real. And so is the afterlife of all those religions. All those rules that say if you do this, then you're going to hell. Or if you have a certain attraction to the different gender, are all lies. It didn't matter what you were. It just mattered if you were a good person or not. The veil had souls in it. They were ghosts. They could walk around, do whatever they wanted, but they couldn't touch anything. It would go right through them. Ghosts had a unique appearance. They would have a blue glow to them, and they were also transparent. Basically, this is for murdered soul suspect. They had other abilities, but they will be explained later. Kitsunes were also considered spirits, and spirits could walk through the veil like a ghost and have the same abilities as them. When a kitsune would enter the veil, they would look like a ghost in the form they had in the living world. Inko had just entered the veil. She did not need to be seen, and definitely no one needed to see that it was her of what she was about to do. All right, time to find these assholes. She walked through the halls. She went through the wall a few times to see what was going on in each room. How was she going to find them? She should have asked for their room number as well. DM in it. He'll go back and compel him to give me the room numbers. She thought to herself. As she was heading back, she spotted a small boy, probably Izuku's age, leaning against a way. But he was not an ordinary boy. He had the blue glow and was see-through. A ghost. It was always sad when she found a kid ghost. Nothing should have to die young. She thought he might know the teachers here. He had on a school uniform. She made her way to him. He didn't notice her when she was in front of him. She kneeled down to meet eye level with him. She smiled. "Hi there," she greeted. He looked up with a bored expression. "Hi, my name is Inko. What's your name?" She asked. He kept his head bowed. Was he shy? "Yuki. That's a lovely name. Listen, I'm trying to look for a few people. Could you help me?" She asked the shy ghost. He finally looked up, ready to reply, but quickly changed into a puzzled look. "You don't belong here, do you?" he asked slowly. "Neither do you." She smirked. "No, but you're not dead, are you?" He asked again, knowing Inko was still alive. Ghost could sense what still live and what is dead. Even though she had the same appearance as a ghost, they could still tell. It was just one of those powers. Caught me. I'm just passing through. I'm trying to look for a few people. Can you help me? She repeated her question. He looked skeptical at first, but then relented. Who are you looking for? He asked. He's got nothing better to do. She listed the names of those who were in charge of her little fox. He frowned at the mention of their names. Why do you want to find them? They're awful people. They don't deserve to live. He lowered his head and turned away from her. Oh, did something happen with this, Yuki? She placed a hand on his shoulder. That's exactly why I'm trying to find them. I'm here to give them what they deserve. She responded in a gentle voice. He quickly turned around. Shock was all over his face. What do you mean? You can't do anything. You're a ghost. Inko grinned. I'm not just a ghost. And even if I was, that wouldn't stop me. Inko stood up and held out her hand to the young ghost boy. He stared at her hand before finally taking it and dragging her towards her destination. Lead the way, Inko said. While walking the halls, Inko grew curious. Why do you hate them? It was clear that Yuki did. A few seconds until he gave her an answer. They're real mean, especially to anyone quirkless. Like that green-haired kid. He revealed. He knew Izuku. She thought. I don't get why. He's really nice, he's smart, and he loves heroes. He's practically a genius when it comes down to them. Yuki praised Izuku. Then it took a dark turn. They're so unfair to him. He is so much better than those other idiots. And yet they get treated better just because they have a quirk. It's such CRP, Yuki scoffed. There was more, wasn't there? She halted. She stopped both of them. She kneeled down. Yuki, did they do something to you when you were alive? She gently sked. He didn't turn around, but he trembled. TT, they bullied me. SS so much. He gritted through clenched teeth. They did nothing to help me when it came to others. When I came to them with a problem, they would always say it was my fault. And then the day came when my grandma died. He revealed. Inko hated where this was going. When I was declared quirkless, she hated me for so long. She couldn't even look at me. Even after all that, I still loved her. I couldn't even go into her hospital room on her last day. She didn't want me there. Inko turned him around and hugged him. He gracefully accepted it and buried his head into her shoulder. He wailed. After a few minutes, he looked up and continued. After that, I was having a hard time in class. I would space out for an entire day. I would barely eat. I wasn't getting better. I explained to my teachers the situation. They all said that she was right to keep me out and hate me. After they all said that, I ran straight into traffic. He revealed his death. That fueled Inko's rage. These teachers, who were supposed to help their students and care for them, had driven this one to his death. She hugged him again. He hugged back. After a while in the Vale, it gets kind of lonely. The police came and interviewed them. They all lied and said that they tried to comfort me when I was depressed. The story was that a quirkless middle schooler had committed suicide due to depression. They had closed the case 3 days after. They were responsible for his death. He just needed comfort, not guilt. Like I said, fuel for rage. She looked Yuki straight in the eye. Take me to them, and I swear to you, I will make them suffer. She promised. Yuki wiped his eyes of tears and nodded. He led Inko to these so-called teachers. Number 1, she didn't bother to learn their names since they were not going to be important to her anytime soon. So she just numbered them. He was teaching a class. Something about mathematics. Half the class was paying attention. And, oh my God, he's not even teaching it right. It's x equals the circumference of the... Wait, she wasn't here to make corrections. She had lived for over 5,000 years. Inko is a genius in every subject. And when she means every subject, she means every subject. She could speak every language known to man. She was a scientist in every category. She was once a poet. She had literally lived through history. She could describe every bit of life in mathematic details. Wait, what was she doing? She didn't have time to boast about her life. She had people to torture. She whispered to Yuki, who was right next to her, staring at number 1 with contempt. Watch closely. This will be very entertaining. He didn't respond. He just nodded. They were both going to enjoy this. Inko raised her hand toward him. She crossed her index finger and her middle finger. then flicked her wrist. At the very second, a sickening crunch was heard throughout the room, followed by a shrill scream blasting with pain. This got everyone's attention. They all stared in shock as their teacher's arm was bent the wrong way. Inko moved her hand again. This time his other arm bent the other way, and another crunch and scream followed. Some students got up to help their teacher. They were slowly approaching him when another bone broke, this time in his legs. Inko moved her arm again, this time in an upwards motion. This lifted the teacher up. He screamed in horrible agony. The students who were about to help him stepped back in utter horror. Inko made a fist and griped a bit tighter. The teacher's bones were now compacting in on each other. Inko was presenting a real-life horror movie. The students wouldn't forget this anytime soon. The screams of the teacher and the children brought the other teachers and students from other classrooms to them. Number 2 has just presented herself with another wave of Inko's hand. Number 2 was suffering the same fate. The screams of all who witnessed had brought the entire school to their location. And there was numbers 3, 4, 5. Inko gripped her hand, and number 3 was having his fingers bent backwards like they were turned around. Same thing happened with his arm and legs. Number 4, her teeth were getting pulled out painfully, and then her fingernails and toenails. The entire school was filled with screams and cries for help. You're right. No hero could stop Inko. Number 5 had been the one that wrongfully reprimanded Izuku the other day. This is what you all deserve, Inko thought. She now raised both her hands. All the atrocities that happened to the previous numbers had converged on number 5. He was raised up in the air and had his arms bent backwards, his nails torn out, teeth, and his bones were compacted into each other. Inko turned to Yuki. The expression on his face was absolute glee. He wanted them to suffer for what they had done. To him, to Izuku, to every other child they mistreated. The students were running in all directions, trying to get away from the mysterious force, fearing it would come for them next. Inko opened her palms, and they were released. The nightmare the school had just suffered was now done. Sirens could be heard and voices saying that they were pro-heroes. Everyone was evacuating. Inko grabbed Yuki's hand and proceeded outside. Outside were all sorts of heroes and ambulances. The students were all in a group near the far gate of the school. News reporter vans were here already. She had gained a lot of attention. But you know what? It was worth it. They were still alive. The medical knowledge they had now would save their lives. Inko and Yuki were standing to the side, watching everyone do their work. Yuki looked at Inko, who had a calm expression. How many times did you break their bones? He heard a lot of crunches and cracks. Oh, I don't know. I lost count. She replied without removing her body. These BSDRDS had gotten what they deserved. That had no right to treat any kid the way they did. And she only knew about Izuku and Yuki. Who knows how many others have been hurt by them. Yuki tugged at Inko's hand. Her attention shifted from the situation to the ghost child. Are you going to be leaving now? She meekly asked. She was. Now that her work is done, she had her little fox to get home to. But she didn't want to leave Yuki alone. She knew what she had to do. He kneeled down. The real question is, are you going to be leaving now? She wasn't talking about the area. She was talking about the veil. His face now took on fear. He had been in the veil for a while. He doesn't know. I am scared. What's after this place? Will it be better? Or will it be something else? He hoped that Inko would know. Yuki, I know for a fact that where you're going no one will hurt you ever again. And you can be happy. She knew so many that found peace. It was hard because kitsunes could not travel to the afterlife and come back. To kitsunes, their soul was different. Their soul would be split up. The good part goes to the afterlife like all other good souls, and the bad part gets destroyed. All kitsunes went to the good place if you thought about it. She knows that one day she will be reunited with her love. But she wasn't planning on any time soon. She still had her son to be with. Yuki's body started to glow brighter. In the orange sunset, this was a nice way to leave. Will I see you again someday? You are a genuinely nice lady. You helped me get justice. I want to see you again. I promise I will see you again. She promised the little boy. His body glowed brighter and brighter. It's a promise, Inko declared as Yuki disappeared in a ray of light. He had a bright smile. Yuki had moved on. He found peace. Inko looked back to the school and finally left. She stayed in her ghost form for a while. A few blocks later, she was back in the world of the living. Now to return to my little fox. I should get ingredients for spaghetti. He'll love that. The last few days were not that interesting, Izuku thought, considering he can barely be up more than half an hour. After that, he would sleep for about 8 hours. In all his sleep, he did not dream. He didn't feel like he wanted a dreamless sleep ever. But after a while, he realized it was peaceful. He didn't have to worry about a thing. He absolutely loved it. It was a true state of serenity. For a few hours, he felt like he didn't even exist. His necessary vacation was extended for a week due to some incidents that happened at his school. He didn't hear much other than his teachers were seriously harmed. They had to be admitted in the hospital for a very long time. Izuku didn't want to sound mean or anything, but he was glad that they would be gone for a while. They were real assholes. They were always really mean to him and would find any excuse they could find to get HM in trouble. Or they would just make them up. That news reported that it was a villain that had infiltrated the school and harmed the 5 teachers with an extremely dangerous quirk. The villain had not been identified and is still at large. This did not settle well with Izuku. He asked his mother what she thought of the matter. She just grinned and resumed what she was previously doing. This made Izuku very uneasy. Oh God, please tell me she did not have anything to do with this. He thought. His mom wouldn't intentionally hurt anyone, right? Then he remembered the night where his entire world changed. She did rip that man's heart out, but that was only to protect me. Would she do more? He didn't dwell on it, fearing he would spiral out of control. But one thing stayed with him. No matter what, he would never think horribly about his mother. As the days passed, he started to stay awake longer. At first, he could stay awake for at least an hour. Then it turned to 3 hours. Then 6. Then it was as if he could stay awake normally again. He felt better since he didn't have to sleep all the time now. He wanted to do a few things on his day off, but he was still worried about going outside. No, scratch that. He was afraid of going without his mother. She had said that it was okay for him to leave her side now that his powers finally stabilized. He was still worried since he didn't know how to control or even how to use his powers yet. Was it like a quirk? No, his mother said quirks are tiny drops of power compared to the powers of Kitsune. So this wasn't anything like having a quirk. His mother stated how powerful he was, that apparently he could cause multiple disasters. And the only thing that stopped him was his mother's power. Inko was 5,454 years old, and she even said it was hard for her to contain him. He didn't tell her, but that made him feel good and bad. Good because he was so strong that his own Kitsune mother had a hard time keeping him under control. And from what he understood, she was one of the strongest Kitsunes out there. He felt bad because all this power could hurt someone if he is not careful. He could apparently melt some person's face just by showing them his tail. That freaked him out a lot. Also, he didn't feel an extra body part on him. Was it spiritual or something? His mom talked about her tails like they were something that they could just put away. Ugh. I'm only a week and a half into this Kitsune thing, and it is already so complicated and confusing. During the days that he still had off, he went online and researched all he could about Kitsunes. There was a lot of information. He spent hours on the computer just poring over the lore on Kitsunes. He didn't know how much true and how much was fake, since his mother stated that what little information we do give them is only half true. So he pretty much pored over everything. One of the first things was the tails. Many sites stated that the only way to tell if a fox they are seeing is if the fox has multiple tails. Izuku obviously deemed this untrue because him and his mother are Kitsunes and they don't show tails. Plus, with the illusion abilities, couldn't they just hide the tails? Whoever wrote this is an idiot. Other sites stated that every 100 years a Kitsune will grow a tail. 1 century for every tail. Another source stated that the Kitsune had 9 tails from BRTH. He deemed this a lie as well, since his mother told him obtaining tails relied on 3 factors: power, experience, control. His mother had said he doesn't need to worry about power for a while since he apparently had so much of it. He wanted to ask his mother why he had so much. He would have to add it to the million other questions he had. Seriously. The next thing was that of intelligence. Kitsunes were extremely smart. He could recall countless times where his mother proved her high intellect. First off, she worked as a nurse for Mizudafu General. Second off, anytime he asked her if he could help him with his homework, she would barely take a glance at it before she knew all the answers to the entire section he was working on. This wasn't on just one or two subjects. This was in every subject. Math, she even spotted some errors in the written homework worksheet where it tried to give him examples. She had wrote on the worksheet about it, and his teacher sent him to the office because he apparently disrespected his teaching. He did not tell her about this. When it came to science, Inko was like a scientist for him another time. He once quizzed her into explaining the entire process of mitosis and meiosis. She didn't miss a singed step, and she even explained the photosynthesis process in plants. That day, he never doubted his mother's knowledge of science ever again. With history, she was like a famous historian. Back then, he wondered how she knew so much about every era and every single dynasty and every single war that has ever taken place. Now that he knows that she has lived over 5,000 years, he isn't surprised that she knows so much about history. Hell, she practically lived history. Izuku wonders if she met any historical famous people. Another thing to ask her in the future. Language, though, he was kind of confused about that. One day when he was 7, Inko had brought them to the park to play. There were these two people walking around, looking very lost. Inko had approached them and asked if they needed help. They just looked at her and spoke in a language that Izuku wasn't familiar with. Then, to his shock, Inko had started to speak in their tongue. Apparently, they had a great conversation. They were lost, and Inko had spoke to them what directions to take. They took off after that. Izuku asked his mother what language she spoke and how she knew it. She replied that she was speaking French, and she said that she had been fluent for a very long time. How long is a long time for her? Guess that thing about Kitsunes being smart is true, because Inko was a freaking genius. The next thing he searched up, which he quickly deemed a lie, was that they had their pearls in their tails. The lore said that Kitsunes have their souls in pearls, and they hid them on their tails. Inko had stated that there was only one pearl, also that their pearls were in their hearts. The lore said that if they cut off the Kitsune tail, the Kitsune will die. Well, that was also a load of bull. Humans even thought that if they had possession of their pearl, they would have control over the Kitsune. Even if that were true, he was definitely sure his mother would never bow to anyone. The next thing in the lore was something Izuku was a bit nervous about. Well, more nervous about than the other things. Out of every web page he searched up and every bit of lore he documented, there was one word that was always there. Trickster. Every single thing that was brought up said the same thing. Kitsunes are liars, manipulators, and con artists. There were many old stories of where the Kitsune would trick the human into love or some kind of deal and them robbing the blind. There were more stories of where Kitsunes would transform into appealing women and lead slimy men to their death. This didn't sit well with Izuku. He wasn't a deceitful person at all. He was always honest. He always hated lying. It was like having a bad taste in his mouth. And when he wasn't honest, he could not lie to save his life. He was a terrible liar. He did not know whether this one was true or not since he just gained back his true nature only 2 weeks ago, and he hadn't been anyone except his mother. Inko, though, was a different case. She had successfully hid from humans for many years and led a human life. She had never had a slip-up until her kid's life was being threatened. Technically, that wasn't a slip-up. She had intentionally wanted to kill that man. Apart from his mother and him, there were only a few hundred Kitsunes left in the world. There was absolutely no sign of them. To be fair, this was a world where superpowers were the normal thing. But anyone with the power, even half as close to his mother, would be recognized. He hasn't seen a single one. So maybe, just maybe they were tricksters. Everything else, he hasn't really got into much detail. However, he will find out everything about Kitsunes, real or not. But today he had crisis to deal with. Going back to school. He was just going to school, where everybody despises him for being quirkless, where he would no longer be an ordinary human, of which he was part of a species so dangerous that he could kill someone if he were just feeling sad. And to top that all off, his previous teachers that were part of his tormentors are now heavily injured and most likely not going to return due to his vengeful mother. Yup, he was screwed. Monday morning, 6:45 a.m. Izuku was getting ready for his first day to school. He had already finished the delicious breakfast that his mom made. Even after a week and a half of having his enhanced sense of taste, he still felt as if the food was made for gods. He had just finished tying his shoes when he heard his mother behind him. He turned around, and sure enough, she was right there with a big smile and a bento box in her hand. "This is for lunch, sweetie." She handed him the box, and he was about to open it to see what delicious dish he would be eating when his mother held her hand up. "Wait till lunch, sweetie. I'm definitely sure if you saw it now that it will be gone in the next minute," she explained. That was another thing that he had gained. He could eat incredibly fast now that it was like he didn't have to chew. He nodded and placed the box into his yellow backpack. He was about to head out when suddenly his mother grabbed his arm and turned him back to face her. "Baby, I know you're trying very hard not to show it, but I can clearly see that you are extremely nervous about today." She smiled gently to her son. Truth be told, he was freaking the hell out right now. He did not know how today was going to go. He did not want to tell his mom because she had been dealing with him for over 2 weeks now and only focusing on him. He didn't want to worry her anymore. Izuku didn't respond. He just looked at his red shoes. "How about this? I'm going to give you a task today, and I want you focusing on that." Inko gave him another grin. He looked up curious. "Today I want you to try to figure out what you have for lunch without opening it," Inko stated. Izuku grew confused. "How would I do that if I don't open it? Remember when I said your other senses should start developing soon? Well, today I want you to focus on trying to get in touch with them," Inko responded. Izuku was skeptical about this. He only acquired taste, and that was overwhelmingly amazing. He didn't even try. It just came on one day. Now, his mom was saying to try to get in touch with them. He didn't know if he could do it. "I know what you were thinking. You were thinking that you don't think that you can do this, and that this is going to be impossible for you." She basically read his mind. "But this is impossible," he argued. "I mean, a few weeks ago, I was a quirkless human, and now I don't know where to begin. Quirks begin early in people's lives, and they get used to them, so it's like stitched in their minds how they work. Me, I'm just getting this, and I don't know where to go with this Kadash." His mother stopped him with her hand over his mouth, with an annoyed face. "Honey, I'm only going to tell you this once, and once only." Her voice was now void of motherly concern. It was kind of terrifying. She took her hand off his mouth, and she grabbed the sides of his face and brought him awfully close to hers. Izuku's eyes were wide with fear. Oh God, did he say something to PSS her off? Kitsunes do not have quirks. We have powers. Quirks are tiny crumbs to what kitsunes have. And what you have is not a quirk. You are quirkless, not powerless. Humans cannot even comprehend the insane amount of power our people have. What you have is power. Saying you have a quirk is self-deprecating to yourself and all kitsunes. You are a kitsune. Nothing is impossible for you, she said with the utmost pride anyone can have. "Do you understand?" Inko asked her son, who was so terrified at the moment. Izuku nodded frantically. He messed up. "Say it." Inko did not leave any room for defiance. Izuku didn't know what to say, so he improvised. "We are kitsunes. We do not have quirks. We have powers. Nothing is impossible for me." He spoke very carefully. Then just like a SWCH was flicked, Inko was back to her motherly loving self. "And that is how I know you can do it." She beamed with a smile. She let go of his face, which was pale as a freaking vampire. How can she change her mood to motherly encouraging to terrifying to motherly encouraging in just a couple of minutes? She looked at the clock and gasped. "Oh, you're going to be late if you don't leave now." She started to push him out. "You're going to do great. Remember to try to find out what you have for lunch. Don't kill anyone. You're going to be fine. I love you. Be safe." She spoke so fast that he almost didn't catch the "don't kill anyone" part. He had his face scrunched up in fear as he ran down the stairs to his apartment. Not before shouting, "I love you too." He ran to school. Inko watched from the balcony of their apartment building as he ran down the street with a smile on her face. She shed a tear. This was the first time her little fox had left their den without a leash on. She was definitely going to get a call from the school. 708 Izuku was basically an emotional mess at the moment. He was nervous to go to school every day because everyone there was out to get him. But today it was going to be quite different. Today he wasn't going as a human. He was going as a kitsune. He passed a cafe that had great pastries and wonderful desserts. He's been meaning to get something from here for a while, since he hasn't been for a few weeks. He wondered what it would be like now that he had his new sense of taste. Right before his awakening, they had just come out with a new snickerdoodle cookie dessert. He was so excited to try that. He was about to head in when he realized one crucial thing. He had no money. CRP. He had wanted to get one so bad. His appetite for everything had skyrocketed since he awakened. God, he wanted one so bad, he could even feel his mouth watering. Wait, what if I get one without them noticing? I mean, they're presented on the counter in little bags, and he could just grab one if they weren't looking. Wait, what? Did he think of stealing something? What was wrong with him? It was just a cookie. Where had that come from? Izuku backed away from the entrance to the cafe very sheepishly. He turned tail and ran to his school. He earned a few strange looks from others. After he was about 3 blocks from where he previously was, he stopped and pondered over what he just thought. Did he seriously think of stealing? He had never stolen anything in his life. He was shocked to even think he could think that. Oh dear God, what was happening to him? He wasn't even an hour out of his house, and he was already considering larceny. To be fair, it was just a cookie, and it only costed a few dollars for a couple of them. Also, they really shouldn't have it. They're just sitting like that where anyone can just take them. Wait, no, stop it. You're trying to defend yourself. Stop it. He was having an internal fight with his head while walking, and it wasn't fun. Why am I acting this way? He thought. Wait, the Lord did say that all kitsunes were tricksters and that they steal a lot. Was this because he was a kitsune again? Was this some sort of mental inheritance of some kind? Maybe it was. He didn't care for anything that much where he would commit a crime over. This was not turning into a good day already, and he haven't even made it to school yet. Oh wait, school. Oh CRP, he was going to be late. He started to run. I'll worry about that later. For now, he had to beat the bell. He arrived in his classroom with just a few minutes to spare. He entered, and as usual, no one paid any attention to him. He got to his desk, and sure enough, there was writing on it. Just the daily quirkless harassment CRP. He dealt with this all the time. Even though they'd done it a million times, it never got old. So far, a pretty normal day. He used his sleeve to rub off the graffiti. Does the teacher ever get mad at them for ruining the desk? Oh wait, guess the teacher that he recently had was now gone for a long while. I wonder what the new teacher will be like. God, I hope better. He could hear his other classmates talk about the incident of a villain sneaking into their school and harming the teachers. Some said that it was so cool. Some said that they were sad to see some of them go since they gave extra credit to them for giving him money. Izuku may not have like the teachers, but seriously people. Are they not worried for their well-being or anything like that? They were just worried about themselves. Just as he was done wiping away the terrible drawings of him away, the bell rang. All the students in the class were now seated waiting for their new teacher. Said new teacher had just come in and looked bored out of his mind. He wore a white button-up shirt and a red tie. He had blonde hair that had way too much hair gel. He had a scowl on his face. Yup, this was going to be good. Good morning, class. I am your substitute teacher for the time being until the school hires new ones to replace your others ever since the incident. He greeted. Was that seriously what they were calling it? The incident? Until then, I expect you all to be respectful students until the time being. For now, we will just go over simple stuff where I hope you all don't fall behind. Please get your textbooks out and open up to Chapter 14. The teacher instructed his class. He started to write on the chalkboard. Many of the students groaned at that. Yup, usual class as always. After 20 minutes of going over some problems and going through some examples, the teacher had stopped them. All right, for the rest of the hour, I want you all to complete the worksheet and turn it in by the end of the day. If you need any help, just raise your hand. Any questions? Several students raised their hand. The teacher let out a big sigh and pointed at the boy closest to him. What is your question? He asked in a very bored tone. Did the heroes ever catch the villain that hurt the teachers? He asked all giddy. What was so funny? No one has been apprehended yet. The police are still investigating. He pointed at another kid. Are our teachers going to come back anytime soon? We all love them. She stated. That was a joke. Izuku hated them. They were always assholes to him. Your teacher's injuries were extremely severe. They will have to be in the hospital in critical care for at least 7 months. And after that, they will not be returning. He finished with more students looking confused, including Izuku. Several students were now voicing their concerns. Why aren't they coming back? Is something wrong with them? What with them? Did that stupid villain scare them? Enough, cried the teacher. Everyone shut up. He let out a big sigh. Your teachers are under investigation by the school board and the police. I don't really know much, but what I do know is that they're under investigation for child abuse and fraud. The evidence against them is pretty big, and they will very much lose their teaching license. They could even risk jail time for the crimes. But apart from that, I do not know anymore. He explained to his class. How did that happen? The only ones that they really abuse are Izuku and a couple of other students that are declared quirkless. From what Izuku understood, they have been doing it for years. Why would they be caught now? There had been a death of a kid a few years back, and that would have gotten police to investigate them. But it didn't happen. So what changed? What was so different now? Mom, of course. You did those things to the teachers. You must have done something else as well, didn't you? Izuku wondered as the class erupted in total chaos, yelling at the sub, telling him that it was all lies and that they were good teachers. That's all bullshit. They would never do that. It's all lies. That villain got the wrong people. That made Izuku freeze. His mother wasn't a villain. She was the kindest woman / kitsune alive. She would never do th dash. Okay, he was about to say she would never do that, but it was obvious she did. But she would never be considered a villain. This made him mad that his classmates were calling his mother a villain. And another thing they were saying was the huge lie of the innocence of their former teachers. They were so terrible to him and to other people. The students only said that CRP because the abuse was never directed at them. Something inside Izuku was starting to bubble up. That's CRP. They're good people. What a stupid villain. Shut up. Izuku wanted to scream at them. They wouldn't hurt anyone. Lies. Izuku made a fist. That villain is going away forever. You beach. His fist tightened. Hope he burns in hell. I'll kill you. Izuku started to feel something inside him start to overflow. They're innocent, you'll see. They will burn. Izuku was now feeling like something was about to spill out. Bakugo glanced over at him and noticed the intense rage that no one else was seeing. Izuku could comprehend the sentences now, but he can still hear the disgusting words. Villain. Shut up. Innocent. Shut up. Best teacher. Ever shut up. Prison. BSDRDS. Monster. Shut up. Shatter. The entire class was silenced over the horrid cracking of the windows. The glass windows that were spotless and clean were now entirely overtaken by webs and webs of cracks all over, not missing a single inch to spare. Who used their quirk? The sub demanded to know. The class was shocked into total silence over what had just happened. Not only was it terrifyingly loud, but those windows were designed to be quirk-proof. They had the strength to stop the fastest bullet. The force it would need to even make a tiny crack was 4 tons. They were designed by David Shield to protect schools due to quirks being out of control in teenagers. No one in that class was that strong. No, even Bakugo's explosions could do that. I mean it. Who used their quirk? The sub demanded once again. No one made a sound. For Izuku, he was quietly panicking. He stared at the glass that was cracked beyond repair, mouth gaped wide. He did that. It wasn't a question. He knew he did that. He felt it. He felt the power in him rising. He felt it go beyond his boiling point. He caused that to happen. Sir, no one used their quirks. A student finally spoke up and told the truth. And it was true. Izuku didn't use a quirk. He used his power. The sub huffed and glared at them all. While I can excuse that riot that had just happened, I cannot excuse the inappropriate use of quirks. If the one who did it does not turn themselves in by the end of the day, you all get detention. The start of an argument was about to start, but another glare from the teacher shut them up. Do you all want to make a week? He whispered threateningly. Most of the class shook their heads, too filled with fear to argue back. The only ones who didn't move were Bakugo and Izuku. Izuku from shock of what he did. Bakugo from pride. All of you get your work done. I need to go report this to the principal. He stomped out and slammed the door loudly. The class sighed a breath of relief they didn't know they were holding. Immediately, the class was talking with each other about what had just happened. Izuku didn't move an inch. This was what happened if he felt angry. Was this what it was like to have a quirk? No, this was what it was like to have absolute power. Thank you for joining us on this journey through What If Deku Had Kitsune Quirk. We hope you found it as captivating as we did. A big thank you to FoxLover25 for creating such an engaging story. Don't forget to visit their profile on archiveofourown.org for more fantastic works. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Zenin Fanfics for more intriguing explorations into fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we love hearing your thoughts and suggestions in the comment section. See you soon in the next video.